Okay, this should be episode 73 of Summoning Insight. And I'm your usual host, Thorin. And Monte's here. He also does like streaming and stuff now. Tries to make these like videos where he breaks down topics, just him talking into a camera. Not really a fan of people who just copy other people's ideas, but you know, you can always try to do better. That's something you can always try and do, right, Monte? So now I know how Artosis feels, but okay.
Yeah,
so
yeah, just in general though, I'm pretty sure you invented the vlog.
I did.
Actually,
I did. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So what happened is some people went back in time and tried to do a worse version of it before me, but that doesn't change the fact that in the time stream, much like Game of Thrones, you will find out in the future that actually they go back in time. So that's actually a spoiler there. It isn't, though, at the same time. It isn't at the same
spoiler
time.
Alert.
It isn't at the same time. Yeah. And our guest this week, that French voice you hear, is Shaunz from Vitality. And the thing is, most of you guys don't know a lot of French players, you know. You know Yellow Star, but, you know, people don't know his personality as much, you know. Just know he's a very good teammate. So I would describe Shaunz like this. He's like the anti-Soaz, because Soaz just plays. He doesn't put in a lot of work during the season. He doesn't do very well in the season. And then the playoffs come. He gets much better. He does fantastic. He performs and he becomes a champion. Now, Shaunz puts in a lot of work during the season. He's there all the time. He's actually getting good results in the season. Things are getting better. And then the playoffs come and then he actually goes to shit and then he tilts at that point in time and his team's accomplished nothing. So if you put the two of them together, you would have like the ultimate French Archon of League of Legends, and you would have both regular season dominance and playoff success. So how are you doing, Shaunz?
That's a nice introduction. Thank you for seeing me. Well, the description is accurate, but maybe it doesn't define exactly who I am, but I appreciate the word.
This season, he doesn't even have the regular season results to go on.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm Soaz. This is
okay.
Actually, Soaz is even harder this season than normal.
Okay.
He's going full Soaz here then.
Right, okay, so here's where I want to start, actually, Sean. So I actually want to start with the Gambit era, because there's some interesting things about that era of time, which is, obviously you inherited the team from Leviathan, who had like a good regular season, but then the way the playoffs went, the team like wasn't happy with that whole direction. They wanted someone new. You got drafted in to be the coach there, and one of the first things I remember was this was the season when you guys picked up Forgiven. And obviously, even now, he's still a very controversial name, but partly because he's obviously a very talented player, but he's had difficulties fitting into teams in the past. Now, in this team, this was the era when everyone claimed that, like, AD carries couldn't really carry the game the same way that Forgiven wanted to, you know, where you just smash the lane and then you can spin that into, like, map dominance or whatever. Everyone said you couldn't really do that so much, and it's true at the time, if we look at who the AD carries who were performing well it was people like Yarnan and Vardags. It wasn't necessarily the people who were the lane dominant guys. Okay, so there's some logic to that. The problem is in this team, even if Forgiven wasn't like the star player, you would think he would still have he would be like the second threat. Okay, because you've got Ghanbarzadeh, and at the time, obviously carry champions were very viable for top laners. That's the way he wants to play the game. So you would think you'd have some sort of system, you know, like, yeah, okay, you're going to have Ghanbarzadeh get ahead, you're going to help support him with the jungler, but Forgiven's going to get something at some point. Now, Forgiven obviously isn't in Gambit anymore. I've talked to Forgiven a lot of times. He seems to think that in Gambit, the whole team, except him basically, wanted to just run the whole team through Ghanbarzadeh, and he was going to be the carry, and the jungler was basically told he's just going to go top all the time, and Forgiven was essentially told, like, you're just not going to get much jungle support, you know, like you're just gonna be like these other guys. You're going to play Sivir, and you're going to be a scuttlebot or whatever that term he had.
I mean, he was not playing Sivir at the beginning.
Okay, he wasn't at the beginning. It's true. So what was this actually something to do with you? Was this like a philosophy you had at the time of how the game should be played in the meta?
Yeah, definitely. I have a pretty big responsibility into that. I mean, you know, when you watch the team, you were in summer split. You were obviously like watching a bit how Fnatic was doing, and well, they are like insane record, even like doing pretty good. And yeah, like they were playing with Uni carry, Reignover playing around it. So once you mix it, then you understand that carry can be interesting. Then after, to proceed, you just like analyze a bit every region. You analyze like what are the paths for the junglers that makes the mid game more successful or more efficient. And it was true when you were getting bot side control, it was not really worth, because you could get maybe dragon out of that, but usually there were enough man to defend the turret in 2v2. So what we concluded on that is that if the carry top laner is ahead of the enemy, then he will split push the whole way, and then he has the possibility to TP anytime, because he's probably gonna have TP advantage because he make a good trade. And with this TP, you just TP in bot lane, and then you win the game. And maybe the mentality that you could have right now, this meta is like, it's pretty easy. It's like Forgiven, for example, wanted to crush the lane and to just win 2v2, get the turret. Once you get the turret, you push it as much as you can. And then after you go base, then you go on top lane, and meanwhile Cabo goes on the other side, then you push again top lane, then after you do a 1-3-1, with mid laner goes on side, Forgiven goes on mid, and then after we push mid lane. And then you win those 3 turrets because of Forgiven being good, right?
Sure.
So, like when you see this, in some regions, they were doing that. I think it was NA when I was watching, I think like the EU-NA clash in season 5 summer split was more favored to EU, if you know the meme. But
people used to give the example actually that in certain regions when they did the lane swap, it was for the opposite one. Like certain regions did it for the top laner, some actually purposely did it for the bot lane.
Yeah, and in the end, when you just focus on what's the best, you, in theory, as a coach, you don't even care that much about the players. Like, of course you do, because it's like human. Sure. You have to make sure that they're all happy, but you want to drive them to win the game. You don't want to drive them to just make them like happy or just like always like smiling. It's just, dude, like I know the rule and the recipe to win the game, so you should probably follow this. And when you go too much into the wrong way and you prove him that, for example, the wall is white, but he will tell you that it's blue, and then in this era, then it was a bit annoying, because then it makes things difficult, because you want to prove this person or this group of people that they are thinking wrong, and that was the core of the Gambit era, I think.
Okay, so Monty, jumping on the first part there, what do you think about that? Obviously, it's a bit of a while ago. We're thinking of Summer Split 2015. What do you think about this notion, though? That's what people defined the meta as. They said it was like if you can play carry top lanes, you play them. You're normally gonna have your AD carry be like Sivir or something. Like the only one I think they really used that was like vaguely lane dominant was Sivir, Kalista, and even then that was still for team fights mainly. It seemed like. So, what do you think of this era? Because it made sense to some degree to play away from AD carry.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense, because remember that the time period we're talking about, which is the playoffs. Actually, remind me, Shaunz, had the Juggernaut patch hit by the time the EU playoffs came around?
Yes, I think it did. It was
I think it. Yeah, I think it.
Gangplank was around, if you remember, Monty. So I think it must have.
Yeah. It may have. I'm just trying to remember if it was like pre or post Darius.
I think that was pre-Darius, wasn't it?
It was pre-Darius, but even so. When you have champions like Gangplank, and yes, at the time, Sivir was obviously extremely strong, is still extremely strong, actually probably maybe arguably stronger now, but this was also before the Sivir nerfs to her ultimate, where basically you could join in later and still get the speed buff, etc., etc. So the utility of AD carries with Sivir and Kalista being able to actually hold those objectives was very important. And obviously, the extension of that we saw at the World Championship, where Fiora, Darius, Gangplank, these were all huge picks in the top lane. And the thing is if you could get your top laner ahead, then it would be much more impactful. So as we switch from meta to meta in League of Legends, you sort of have to look at, where these picks are in relation to the overall power that your team composition can have, and where the most value is at any given position. And I agree, at the time, especially in the late part of the summer of last year and into the World Championships, we were very much looking at a meta where the top lane was extremely important, and the AD carry was much more about providing that utility from Sivir ult, or providing that utility from Kalista for securing objectives with Rend, rather than being like a big AD carry meta.
Okay, so another topic that Shaun's touched on here actually is that, as far as I can tell, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Shaun, but you were kind of saying, this is something I kind of like concluded myself from talking to players that are in your teams. You're basically a coach where you try to look at the meta and see what is the strongest way to play the meta, and then you try to come to your team and coach them on how to play that way. You're not necessarily, so for example, in this scenario, okay, maybe Forgiven is a very strong lane AD carry, but if you don't think that's the meta, then you're going to go with something else, like you're saying. And even if he can tell you, no, I would do well at this one matchup against this one, that's irrelevant if you think the team should play a different way. So it's a different philosophy, because some coaches go the other way. They look at, like, who's my star players? I'm going to play around whatever their strengths are.
I mean, you can do that, right? Like,
sure.
You have to play with your force. Let's say, for example, I have Forgiven and like 4 players that are like not really good, I would say. Like, let's say it's totally absurd, but Diamond 1 players that have no experience in solo queue plus Forgiven, I will obviously tend to play around Forgiven. It makes sense because he's the star player, the super strong player in mechanic. But if you have talent everywhere and like all the person agreed that there's one way of playing, then the person that doesn't agree then should like just accept it, and this is how it should be played. Like Cabochard, even Betsy, and like Diamond and Edward are like pretty good level. Okay, they are not like super shiny compared to Forgiven outplay mechanically, but they were super smart and like they were super good at the game too. So you have to respect their opinion. If they all think the same, then Forgiven is maybe super good, but it's a team game, right? Not an individual game.
Sure.
Also, like what you can touch on is that when you see the impact of utility AD carry compared to top laner, is that usually what I like to do is to prove someone's opinion by a math problem, by absurd reasoning, if you know what I mean. It's for example, someone will tell me maybe this champion is good. So what I will tell him is first, okay, I trust or I don't trust you. And if I don't trust this guy, but I'm not sure, I will always like give him the chance to prove me right or wrong. For example, I don't say my mid laner is thinks that Talia mid is good. Let's say. And Talia mid, like, we will play 1 game of Scream, maybe 2 games, and then after I will tell him the champion is really bad. Why are you playing it? And then he will prove by himself, because he played it, that the champion is bad. So he will automatically say, okay, my coach gave me the chance, and it's not really good, rather than saying the opposite. But in this way, like the meta was so prone around top lane, everyone was playing top lane that like the only thing that Forgiven could do was to play hardcore AD carry that were okay, Lucian maybe, but Lucian had like insane bad win rate. I think it was 0-11 or something during summer split. So I gave him, I think, dude, you should play Kalista. But Forgiven refused to play Kalista, like hardcore. So in this sense, it was really hard, like to find a pool of champions. So I had to practice with him meta champion, which are Sivir and Corki. And I'm sorry, Sivir and Corki are a utility champion. So it makes sense overall, like by this guy refusing Kalista and maybe okay with Lucian, but then after meta champion are utility, so you probably have to play around it, and that's why like top lane meta makes happen.
Why couldn't you get him to play Kalista? I mean, what you're saying is correct.
If you want lane dominant champions, that's like the weirdest one about Forgiven, is that is a lane dominant champion, and especially was at the time we're talking about before the nerfs to her W came through. So I find it even weirder that he would be unwilling to play that Kalista.
But it was weird. Like I played before, and I'm like, for example, when I was playing, I didn't like Evelyn jungle. But for unlucky, like during like 1 month or 2 months, Evelyn was like quite competitive. So I had to force myself to play her. And maybe I was not the best. So if I could play something else, it was good. But I had to play her because she was so good. And I never understood this mentality. And he was really against playing Kalista. And like I was forcing, and he said, no, I can't. And like I think we played it once because he was in a good mood and like he wanted to try it. He played, and we did a super bad scrim. Like he played like pretty bad the champion, or like it was unlucky game. And from this day also, he said, I can't play Kalista. You see, I'm really bad and I don't want to practice it. And it's not my style of champion. So it was a bit controversial. You want to play lane dominant champion? You don't want to play Kalista. So I'm sorry, dude. But now
the problem there, Shaunz. I got to give Forgiven credit. He actually figured out your metric that you just described before, your approach, which is that you would like, if you were discussing with a player to do a champion and they want to play it, you let them have a scrim. Then when it goes badly, you're like, dude, see, you got to play this champion. So Forgiven was like, yes, okay, I'll play this Kalista, you say. Then he played and then he got dumped on and he was like, Look, dude, I can't play it.
No,
See,
no.
I've got you, Sean. I can't play this, man.
Okay, you got me. But let's
Okay.
be honest. Like, there's a difference between trying an off-meta champion that can
Okay,
work
sure,
and
yeah.
a super
Sure.
meta champion that crush dominance. That's the thing. So
Okay.
in this case, it didn't work. Like, it wasn't true. So,
Okay. So in terms of the other part of the equation, though, like having Cabochard be the main carry, obviously the meta allowed it at the time. I've got a weird question for you, though. Did you go too far with it? Because I actually did an interview with Diamond Prox recently, and you would think Diamond Prox, bearing in mind he spent like his whole career in Moscow 5 just going top lane 24/7 because Darian was like overextended for his entire life, as far as I can tell. You would think Diamond Prox would be like, no, this was great. You know, I had a carry top laner, and it was the right thing to go top. He does kind of say that, but what's funny is he actually even says like maybe he went too far with it. Like maybe he camped top lane too much, and maybe Cabochard demanded it too much. You know, so what was the mix like? Do you think when you were the coach?
I definitely agree with that statement. Of course, like Diamond had the mindset to always go top from like deep in his heart. So he really likes it. So first, it's hard to go like in different way. Also, what you need to consider also is that as a human, you need experience in every field that you participate in, and that was my first big experience as a coach. And I was so coaching Diamond, and of course, I always have like my power because I'm the coach and stuff, but once you think the top laner meta is good and you are learning about the path, you're also learning how to coach properly, and you are learning like basically how to handle a pro player team, then maybe I didn't focus too much on saying, oh, maybe you go too much top, because for me it was also good.
Yeah.
Like it was good, so I could have judged a bit more. Like for example, we were like putting Betsy too much on like supportive champion because he was not getting help, or like had maybe 1 or 2 wards if lucky, and we were like trying to play like that. And yes, maybe because of my lack of experience, I could not like handle the trigger, I would say, in terms of like going too deep into the meta. Yeah.
See, this Betsy guy must be a fucking saint then. Like, at least Forgiver was under the surface just boiling with rage that he didn't get jungle help. If Betsy, imagine playing mid lane champions, Monty, in Europe with Betsy, all the mid laners, and they're like, yeah, we'll probably give you 1 or 2 wards in the game, but be sure to like get all that CS in lane and stuff. Don't worry about you're getting ganked from the brush or anything. You will have 1 to 2 wards in the game.
That's why I love Betsy, you know. I mean, this guy was so patient, and he was saying to me, like, sometimes individual, like, Shaunz, I can't carry if you give me more resources. And I say, yes, but, like, meta top lane is also really interesting, and, like, Forgiver is also demanding for resource. So, you know, I have already, like, those 2 gorilla that are fighting to each other to get the resources, and, like, well, let's try. And, yeah, that's why, like, Betsy started to play, like, more utility champion, more TP champion, and then after we were finding that 1-3-1 was our style, so we started to practice it, and, yeah.
Okay. So, Monty, obviously the feed Cabochard, let him carry the top game, continued beyond Season 5, actually. It is still Vitality's main approach to the game, and they, you know what, they have a ride or die approach at this point in time, because I saw it was great in the regular season, and then the playoffs, not so much. So what do you think of this approach? I mean, Cabochard's obviously a very good player at this approach, right?
Yeah, obviously, and I think that when Sean was working with the picks that he had, it does make sense to do what he did and to focus around Cabochard, because that is a really strong approach to playing around that particular player. And actually, you know, if we remember what happened to Gambit at the end of that season, is that they actually were on a giant upswing, right? Their season was sort of saved by this approach to the game.
And then killed by Riot.
I mean, but it's both. It's both.
Yeah,
it's both.
It's both. Sure.
Like the sanction is hard, but also like why is the sanction is also deserved. So
some would say different opinions. That's what makes spice of life, variety, Sean. So we all have different opinions.
I dislike people that break the law. So if you do, then that's
I also dislike corrupt lawmakers. But again, different opinions. We all have different ways of looking at things. So okay. Do you actually believe that, by the way? Do you believe that, like, all the people who are in that team claim that, like, oh, if it wasn't for, like, the ban, you know, we were going to go super deep in the playoffs, we were the only team who could beat Fnatic? Are they being exaggerating? Is there any truth to this, do you think?
It was obviously exaggerating. Like, it's not like because we were in playoff we would be first and win LCS and represent Worlds, but...
Okay.
I strongly think that we could have made something happen because, well, like Origin, like we're like 4, 5, 6 during the whole season, then after make a run until the final. I was like seeing something like that in Gambit because, well, at the end, let's say like the problems that we had were like kind of getting fixed, maybe, and little by little, maybe if like okay, we were like 6 into the playoff, and I think with strong mentality for the players, saying rather than oh this meta is the best or this meta is the best or I would like to play like that or like this, then if they all agree that why they are in fucking playoffs, so they have to win and they have to go far because this is their only chance to win, I'm pretty sure we could have done something. But we cannot like talk about something that didn't happen. So I think like scrims are important, but I'm not the kind of guy that say, oh, we were winning scrims, 80% of scrims, so we deserved it. Like we have to show an LCS, and that was a bit unfortunate that week 9 we didn't get our AD carry, obviously, but before we should have won those games. I think we lost 1 game against Giants, we lost 1 game against Unicorn in week 7 and 8, so we didn't deserve. Like, if we would have been in playoff, maybe we would have done something, but we had to win before, so there is no regrets.
So, in Vitality, for a while, your team was like contending for the top spot. You were tied for top at one point in time in the spring season. And then in the playoffs, many people...
You're a bit lagging, no? It's me?
Are we? Am I lagging?
Oh, God.
Hello? Testing, hello?
Is it me?
Am I back?
No, it's not you. It's them.
That's weird, because I'm still getting everyone else fine.
Go ahead.
Is it better?
Hello. Yeah, it's better.
Yeah.
Is it fixed now?
Yeah,
your question was robot.
Okay, right.
I'm not sure I understood.
I'll redo it. Okay, so in Vitality, your team for a while was contending for the top spot in the regular season. You were number 1, tied with the other 2, with H2K and G2. But in the playoffs, despite everyone I know predicted Vitality will win this series in the playoffs. So what happened to Vitality? How did you get so comprehensively beaten? What do you think went wrong?
Well, I think it was an unlucky meta for us, and we didn't adapt properly. So that's the thing. Like the best teams are the ones who adapted to patch, not differently, and we didn't. So well, if like playoff were on regular season patch, it would have been good, but it was not. So mainly what happened is the change between like top carry oriented, I would say, even if it was more a team game rather only top. But also the fact that like we were a bit struggling because there is like a clash of style in the team, but not like arguing, but we were like trying to figure out if 1-3-1 was the best or 1-1-3. And 1-1-3 being, for example, with Victor, with Azir, with all those champions kind of static that doesn't require to be on the side and just need the clear wave. So we had to figure out a new style because it was working really well and Azir was top meta pick. So we had to adapt and play a 1-1-3 in 2 weeks or 3 weeks maybe. And this was not happening really well. And what happened is that in playoff, we already knew that we are not favorite in our head, like towards the scrim results, towards like our approach to the meta. We knew that Fnatic had the edge, but we were the only one knowing it because we knew the results. And like losing for us was not even a surprise. Of course it was because like we wanted to win, but we really thought that we were a bit out of the meta, or we didn't know how to practice it because so when you change Cabo and he has to play Maokai, Poppy, Nautilus, all the champions, it requires to have a TP pressure with like good according sync on the lanes and the waves, and this didn't happen really well. Plus the fact that we were playing with static mid and no more like Queen, like Lulu, like Ahri, all the champions we like to put nuke on the side. So those two things just like destroyed us in a way, and this was just unlucky, but also our fault because we didn't adapt.
Sure. So I mean, obviously, Ghanbarzadeh went from like Graves, Fiora, Ken, and Poppy. He did play some Nautilus, but then in the playoffs, he played Gragas, Maokai, Echo, Nautilus. So very different champion pool in general. What do you think, Monty, on this topic of like trying to figure out was it 1-1-3 or 1-3-1 you should do? What do you think at the time was the meta?
I don't really know what he means by 1-3-1. So you're saying that versus 1-1-3, or you're saying that, from what I gather, that it was an issue of having the Victor, the Azir wave clearing, and then using the support, jungle, and AD carry to push in a side lane? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. right? Because it depends on where your wave clear is in the game. Sometimes if you have, of course, a lot of Sivir or something like that, you can use, or Caitlyn or Ashe with Hurricane, you can send the AD carry to the mid lane, and if you're running double teleport, then the mid laner goes into the side lanes instead, with the top laner opposite, right? So, I mean, I don't know about that, your conclusion, just because there was a lot of double TP at the time, at least in Korea, especially with the way the Tigers were playing. So I think that 1-3-1 was in fact a viable strategy. But if your players didn't feel that way, and you said yourself that perhaps you misread the meta a little bit, then I do understand more of where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, it was like 1-1-3 and 1-3-1 were viable because, for example, like there is one game against Fnatic where we played Azir against Lissandra, and like Azir, Corki, in a certain extent, were like the dominant in the lane because whatever champion you would play against, you would like just crush the pressure, or at least make the enemy use TP and always behind the turret or under the turret. And what happened in our playoff spot game? It was like Lissandra, so Febiven, managed in a way to escape from our Azir and then roamed. So it was like a clash of style because we thought that 1-1-3 was the best in certain extent, but we lost against a 1-3-1 that we thought was not the best anymore because we were playing it not enough well. And then after, the only thing that I did is game 3, after getting 0-2, I said to the players, guys, like this will not be working. We play 2 times Azir, and like when I say Azir, it's not only nuke, it's like a team comp role, and it's not working really well. So at least to have no regress, let's play a 1-3-1, and let's give our best to prove ourselves that this style is good because we just lost 2 times against 1-3-1, and we played this, and we played I think GP in the mid lane to go on the side lane, and we won. And I was like, that sucks so much because it was working before and we didn't apply for it. So it was our mindset that was wrong. And it's like a bit football, you know, you think 4-3-3 is the best, but 4-4-2, right? And fourth game was really close if you watched it again. And by playing 1-3-1, we were close to manage to win, but we didn't. So yeah, it was just like unlucky perspective of the meta, not only from my point of view, also from the player's point of view. And yeah, from the conclusion we drew from our replays. So.
Okay. I remember watching that series, and the big takeaway for me was that I was really surprised that Fnatic they really looked like a different team. In fact, what I said at the time was they looked like the Rocks Tigers. Like the way they were playing, their aggressive use of double TP, they were basically like a mini Rocks Tigers in that playoff, and they hadn't played like that at all for that season. So I bet it was a surprise to you too that they came out with this particular style because it wasn't something that we had seen from them really before.
Yeah, kinda. It was surprising, but we expected it. Like you can always have a good grasp on what enemy gonna play because usually when you play in scrims, like let's say we play against G2 before our game against Fnatic, you know that G2 is gonna play against Fnatic in scrims, like yesterday or tomorrow, whatever, and you know that priority change. So when you compare. You're in the, let's say it's a day 1, and you compare day 1 from day 3 or day 5, then you know that between day 2 and day 4 they play against Fnatic because they could not play against the other team, or like I say G2, but any team could be the same, and you can feel that they are scared of 1-3-1 or 1-1-3 towards their bans and their picks and their priority, and we knew that 1-3-1 was decent because enemy teams were playing against G2, H2K, Unicorn, whatever, were like playing it good, but we had better results with 1-1-3, and we thought was the best. So it was just a clash between our old style that Fnatic was playing and our new style that thought was the best, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing, with this Ghanbarzadeh-centric carrying the top lane approach, I like it. Like I like when top laners are really good on carry champions, and he obviously was one of the best in Europe and had this mentality. But the question I have is, okay, it makes sense if you were playing... The way it went in the spring makes sense because, okay, for the whole of the regular season it worked. That approach was actually probably the better approach for your team. And they did just change the meta right at the end before the playoffs. So it's very hard to just switch the whole team and how everyone plays. But if we look at the composition of that team, like who the players are, if I look at that team and I see, right, so Ghanbarzadeh wants to carry every single game and play like lane dominant champions. Okay, so he's going to be doing that all game. Jungler's going to be top lane helping him. Nukeduck is just going to be safely farming 24/7 because that's Nukeduck's life and never getting a chance to be ganked. So I'm just going to be teleporting my top laner and putting my jungler into that bot lane 24/7 in Hjarnan's face, behind him, ward behind him, ward behind him. Like, doesn't it make the approach a little bit predictable?
No, because this was not what you're saying is not the truth of our playstyle.
Okay.
We were using it also as a mirror of how the enemy team should play against us. So if like I will definitely not tell you to watch all our games, but we were using a lot Shook to go on both side of the map actually.
Okay.
Especially at the end of the weeks, and this is where we are having success because Cabo learned to play safe. And this is where he improved compared to Gambit, and he's still improving. He's absolutely not the kind of guy that just always wants to gank. Like there's a lot of time where like he just say no, don't come, or like I'm fine, just find the jungler and I can play around it. And then Shug was always pressuring around bot side, like he was like trying to gank, trying to dive, and trying to put down ward. And the fact that he had ward down the bot jungle made our life easier in top lane because we knew I was jungler, but also our bot lane was getting help. And like maybe we didn't help that much Nuke because like Shook was more a guy oriented about vision, less about like ganks, and mid lane ganks are like pretty hard, I would say, because like champions are pretty safe. But we were helping quite a lot Hjarnan though. I mean, he was always like super smart about like when to have ganks, like with casting of course, but like about the waves, he was always communicating about this. So yeah, we just say Cabo just play safe and we can get bot and it was fine. Like everyone accepted it, and I think Cabo was the guy that worked the most to change his personality, saying like, okay, I can carry if we give me 15 ganks, to I can carry if you give me 2 ganks.
Okay.
And if you give me 2 ganks, then after I will play around it. I will just not go like super berserk. I will just like play safe, and that's what happened with like all the champions he was playing. He was playing like Graves. He was playing Fiora. It was like that. Even like Lucian in a certain extent. If you remember, Lucian top was the first guy that put it off because he felt it was good and he was just playing around it. So enemy team thought we were focusing only around top side, so sometimes we knew that jungler would be top side, so Shug was just going, like blind. Even if he had no vision, he knew the jungler would be top. So Cabo would just fake pressure, then Shug goes bot, and then we get two deep wards with Sidestone or whatever if he plays this in. And then after we get the vision for the full game, because whenever jungler goes bot side, then you ward top side and bot side and top side, then we were winning the map just through fooling the enemy jungler.
Okay. So in this playoff series, did Daylor out-coach you? Did he have was he ahead of the meta, or did he figure it out better, or did he figure out how to play you? What do you think?
I don't know. I think coach are important, but this is the player that are playing.
Oh, okay. It's interesting how that works, isn't it? When the teams are winning, the coaches are like, hey guys, I'm really important too. Like, I was helping. And then when the team loses, like, listen, I don't play the game. I can only tell them what to do. I don't control the mouse.
That's wrong.
Okay.
No. So, to be truly honest, I always think that I'm here to make sure that when players enter the field, they are ready, like with the picks, with the mentality, with the strategy, whatever. But when they are playing, if they win or they lose, then it's a team game. So I was part of this and win, and I was part of this loss. But it's not about out-coaching or out-drafting in this. Maybe out-drafting can be a thing. Maybe you prepare wrong, or maybe out-drafting, but not out-coaching.
Okay, good topic. Monty, what do you think of Shaunz drafting? How would you evaluate it?
I actually liked it. I haven't seen very many Vitality games this season, but when it came to last season, I actually thought, especially as the run to the playoffs was going up, and I thought that the playing, and also last year with Gambit, I thought the drafting that they were doing was very smart. In fact, I was very vocal about liking the Nasus picks and stuff that were really unique, but actually surprisingly effective. And so I thought that they were using Ghanbarzadeh really well and playing around his play style while also coming up with some unique picks that proved that they could go a little bit off meta and still be relevant. I'm actually curious what the logic. I think that the logic, actually, I think it's pretty clear, but just to explain to the viewers. So talk about the Nasus picks from last season, because I thought that was clever and also worked really well.
I mean, there's a thing so I've been working with Cabo from like it's my third split with him right now, and and even outside of the game, we have some friends in common and stuff. So when it comes into the game, I'm his coach and he knows it, but he trusts me a lot and as much as I do for him. And now it's the same with every player that I learn to know. And when it comes to some picks, I will always say, I think like this champion can be pretty good. For example, like when Victor or Vladimir came into the Vladimir came into the meta, I instead said to Nuke, I think Anivia can be good. And then 1 week after, you see Faker pulling out 2 games of Anivia. So, like the players like will always listen to my opinion, and if they feel like it, they will train it. So I will never force, for example, my mid laner to play Carter Smith because even if I think it's good, I will never say, okay, you have to play it or I'm gonna get mad and you're only gonna play this champion for the rest of your life. So with Cabo about Nasus, I just thought that Ramus like was a really bad ping into Nasus because like you give Ramus 2 options. Either one, you stay in lane against Nasus and you get destroyed, and even if the enemy jungler comes, like Nasus cannot die, or I mean he can, but it takes time. Or Ramus TP, so our team in bot side of the map needs to be careful, and then Nasus can just crush the turret. So you are giving a lose-lose situation to any Ramus when you play against Nasus, compared to other champions that, for example, like if it was Graves, Graves against Ramus, like Ramus can still kill Graves in a way when he gets Torment and stuff. It cannot kill Nasus. So I just thought like that. I was saying I want to give a situation to enemy team where they think it's lose-lose, and we tried it, and we play scrims against H2K. I remember, so it was like a good practice because H2K was really good, and we won the 2 games. So I was like, yeah, okay, let's pull it off. And then Cabo was like, when I saw Ramus lock in, I was like in the chat in the draft, Cabo, it's your time, buddy. It's time for the Kane, okay. And then we have pulled it. So it didn't work. So like some analysts or like specialists can say, they are hinting in the draft and they think Nasus is good, blah, blah, blah. But we actually theory craft and practice it and then put it off. So
no, I thought it was a really good.
Sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. But that's why I want to use as regular season. Regular season is also a tool to try some things to open your mindset at the playoff start. So.
Okay. So
I thought it was excellent. Just because, like you're saying, against the Ramus doesn't have any ability to wave clear early on. So with the Nasus, you can control the minion waves really well. There's no way to stop the Nasus from getting huge in the late game. I do remember that the game that I'm thinking of, you did lose that game, but it wasn't because of the Nasus pick. In fact, the Nasus pick was pretty effective by my estimate.
Against G2, I think.
Yes, it was against.
It was against G2. I know what we lost. We lost because of one controlled vision. Like they had Gragas Bard, I think, as a jungle support, and this duo was like insanely good. Or it was Lee Sin Bard? Okay, I remember. But I know it was something with Bard, and back in the days, like Bard was really, really, really strong at controlling the mid game, and like we felt a bit into the macro part because they took a good rotation, and then Nuke got caught, I think, and then after we died. So, I mean, Nasus pick couldn't do anything because it was not meant to win the fight, but to win split push. And once you lose map pressure, then Nasus cannot move, although he dies every time. So that was the reason.
So another famous player, and one that you've had in Vitality, obviously to much success in the last regular split, is Nukeduck. Now, one of the interesting things about Nukeduck is obviously he's a veteran. We've seen him play a lot of games in different teams as well. But I've noticed ever since he came back to LCS, so when he was in Roccat and now in Vitality, he's got this weird approach where now it seems like he always has a few pocket picks that he plays and is like pretty good at, So it's always like some off-meta champions. Like when people were playing Varus mid, he was playing that and doing pretty well. Then he had like Yasuo very briefly. And so this split, last split rather, spring, some of his best wins came on some of these a little bit more off-meta picks. Like he was on Gangplank and Quinn and Zillion. He wasn't just spamming the meta champions. What is it Nukeduck like as a mid laner? How does he fit into this team?
Nukeduck is he's a two steps guy, I would say. First step, there is the meta that he can play around it and not, and then after there is the champion that counters the champion that are the meta. And once the champions that counter the meta champions are better, then he will just spam it, and he will just spam it until he see the limits of the champion. And if the enemy team doesn't know how to play it, Gangplank was permaban, but like Queen, for example, once he saw the rework, with the items like MR, like Malmortius went insane. We say, okay, against any AP, I just play Queen. and I build my roaches and I win the game every time. So until they don't understand this, then I will just play queen every game. And like this was true. Same for Zillion against Lissandra. Lissandra is meta, that's good. Zillion is the best again, so I will play Zillion until Lissandra is over. But for example, right now, he thinks Victor is really good. So obviously Victor is a really good champion, so he will just play Victor. He will not like try to find the counter of Victor. That maybe Varus he can play it, but he likes so much Victor that he will just play Victor. So it's the 2 steps.
So what do you think of this
strong opinion in this sense? So
what do you think of this logic, Monty? Does it make sense?
Yeah, I think it follows through.
Okay. So is Nuke Duck the guy who's always like, save last pick for me, I will counter pick this and win lane?
No. I mean, there is not. I mean, it's more about top lane, right? To be honest, because usually a top lane matchup, like either if you play 1v1, that you can have a lot of impact. Like if you play Trundle against Maokai, you're pretty doomed most of the time. And while mid lane now are more into TP or cleans or barrier, so like they can play safe even if they have bad matchup. For example, when you play Lissandra into Vladimir, you know you lost. Like Vladimir will just win the matchup, but with the fact that Lissandra can roam around and play pressure-wise in the mid game, then he can play it. So sometimes he adapts to the team, but he will probably still say what's the best for him. I would say, like for example, he likes LeBlanc, but sometimes Lissandra is better, so he will just say, okay, fine, I will just play Lissandra, even if I think LeBlanc is the best. So he plays for the team too.
What do you think about this then, Monty? Because when their team was having the success, that was one of the things I thought was interesting. It was like Nuke Duck, for example, plays all these different off-meta picks, whereas at the time, if you go to Korea, you're going to see like the obvious ones. It's going to be like Azir, like Lulu, even some Corki. Obviously, we saw some of that a little bit in Europe. Whatever, Lissandra, Victor. It's going to be the standard stuff, right? What do you think about the difference in the regions in this sense?
I do think that the Ahri was Nuke Duck's most played champion in the spring season, the regular season, and I do think that and the Quinn were a bit of a reach, perhaps.
I mean, put it this way, you didn't see Faker play Ahri in that split.
No,
and he played a lot of games.
Very few people did play Ahri, so I was not a big fan of at the time of like all the Ahri picks, but you were seeing that a lot in Europe overall. And I think that if you looked at SKT and you looked at the Tigers, there was a notable lack of Ahri compared to champions like Lulu and LeBlanc and Lissandra at the time. And I suppose I would have liked to have seen that more. But again, if the strategy was really moving away from the 1-3-1, then having good wave clear like Ahri can make sense.
Shaunz, why did we never basically see any Corki? Why would everyone was crying? Oh, it's so overbroken. Look, Perks isn't that good. He's just a broken player on a champion. Why is Nuke Duck just not picking Corki?
Because I think, Nuke Duck is I would say like what you would call a hipster. Maybe.
Okay, come on then. He has to be ahead of the times.
In a good way. Like for example, when he knows all the people think something is good, first reaction will be, nah, this is bad.
Okay.
Because but he will not mean it, or at least he will not mean it 100%. So he will still think that the champion is bad because he thinks the champion is bad. Yeah. So for him, the champion is bad. But when you prove him that this champion, look, he had good results, he's winning every lane, you are losing every time in screens against the core KB because he puts so much pressure, then he will say, okay, maybe that's why people like it, because it's good actually. And then you will have this moment of adaptation where you think, okay, then I apologize guys, it was good actually. So yeah, that's pretty much how he works.
But he still never played it. So did he have some special, did he then go with your logic of like, did he have a counter to Corki that he thought he worked?
No, I think most of the, maybe 1 week I think he didn't want to play Corki because he thought like a champion was better. But then after, we had the opportunity to pick it, but he didn't want. We didn't because of other reasons. Like he said, for example, I think it was GP was open, and he said, "Okay, I can lose a little bit the lane against Corki. I think it was H2K, but I will still carry the mid lane game." And I think we won this game, so he was pretty happy with that.
So what?
It was a Fnatic.
Yeah. Okay. So in your team, you've now had a couple of changes. You had one of the all European teams, and now you've brought in some Koreans. So now we've got this Korean AD carry and a jungler as well, right?
Yep.
Okay. So what is the difference between changing these players and like why bring these players in for a start off? Like the team last season was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So why bring in Koreans?
So, well, for Korea, I mean, like, there are two reasons. First, like, I think it was sort of hype because Koreans were working, but it was not like a hunt to get Koreans no matter what. But it was a possibility. So first, we thought that, like, Shuk was maybe had maybe a lack of motivation in himself. I mean, a bit like Yarnan, but I can go deeper. And we thought that he was not really proactive into the team, into like making us like look better or be the best. And so he would do the stuff we would be saying. We wanted someone more proactive, but he was like really good and had a really good mindset. So we were like putting him in sub though, in a way. Like Shuk is not out totally. And it comes to Yarnan, we didn't want to remove him from the team, and like we were just thinking that also he had like lack of motivation because no breaks, and then team was doing worse. Like when you're doing something really good and then it's going super bad, or I mean really bad, then you're like, what happened? Maybe it's my fault. Maybe I'm not looking well. Then after there's like some small arguments can be happened, and then if your player just doesn't want to work more, then maybe it's time to just either step down or just take a break, and that's what Yarnan did, I think. And he just thought that the team would be better without him, and he didn't feel really like motivated to play more the game. So he is still going sub because those players, they can like obviously perform. They are really good at the game, and we are thinking, yeah, like maybe it's just a moment. So we're just gonna bring those Koreans that are really motivated, that are really hard workers, that are really motivated. So you know, like when you come from not really motivated to motivate, like the change is pretty instant. So that's why we picked them up.
Sure. So okay, Monty, we don't really know much about these Korean players, right?
No, I mean Mighty Bear came from the
LSPL, something like
Police. Yeah, Police came from obviously Apex, and before that was the backup AD carry for ESC Ever.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I mean, I was never really that impressed by Police. So I have a different question for you.
Yeah.
When Forgiven left, why was there no attempt by you to get Forgiven back on the team?
Because I really think that when you weigh the pros and the cons of Forgiven, I really think that for me, he's not the best team player you can have. And I value so much the atmosphere and the willingness you want to put to make the team improve. And from working with Forgiven, maybe it was just unlucky timing, but I didn't feel like he was our best option. So I didn't even consider it, even if I like this guy.
Okay.
So that's why we didn't pick him up. And I mean, you probably want to know a bit more about the Koreans. So first, about Mighty Bear. So he comes from LSPL, but there's something maybe you read somewhere, is that he was supposed to join Kyeogu this split.
Join who?
Kyeogu.
Chaogu. Okay, right.
Yeah, Kyeogu. Sorry,
okay,
my pronunciation. And what happened? It was like there is some drama.
Yeah.
I think between Doinby and Swift.
Yep.
And. Like Doinby wanted Swift out because he was like master. I won't like explain the problem. You already know it.
Yeah.
But then Doinby wanted Mighty Bear in the jungler. His name before was it was Moon. He was like name in the ladder QG Moon. Then what happened is that Doinby got suspended from the team like 3 or 4 days after they wanted Mighty Bear.
Sure.
So they removed Doinby and they bring back Swift. So Mighty Bear was a bit guys, hello, what should I do? And that's why like we got the contacts and we say, oh, okay, maybe we can try you out or just see how it goes. And then I scouted him so much in solo queue, checked like maybe 25 games of him playing. Then after I talked with him on Skype, seeing how he's improving his English, seeing his mentality, how he's thinking about the game, if he thinks strongly, he's passive and stuff. And yeah, from weighing pros and cons, I just say, okay, let's bring this guy. He speaks really good English for a Korean, and he can maybe make something happen. And then I was really impressed when he came because he was like destroying solo queue, and that's like pretty much it for him. And about Police, then he was like interesting in a way that he was already having an experience in English and like in America, so he already knew a bit the atmosphere of West. So we just thought that with an AD carry, since Apex wanted to get a Ray in top lane as a Korean, that was our best chance to get either Mighty Bear Korean and Police Korean to make them work together. And they're actually getting along well in the gaming house. So, yeah.
Oh, okay. No,
That's
I
pretty
mean,
much it.
sadly, we didn't really get to cover it so much on here because it was very self-contained. But that drama between Swift and Doimby was epic. I think my favourite part, if anyone hasn't seen it, just go and read like the translated logs of what Swift was saying to like a manager guy and to Doimby. Some of it's amazing. Like when Tom gets signed by the team and they fly him in, Swift's just like, yes, I will send this fuck home. Just basically, it's super BM. He's like, he doesn't even give the guy a chance. He's like, I'll have this guy removed. Don't worry. Like, it was amazing. It was actually way better than any Western drama. As usual, leave it to the Koreans to do a better job of doing something that a Western person could do. Okay. So
by the way, it's really funny because the Chaogu coach was Coach Park, who is the former, SK Telecom and CJ StarCraft coach, and he's probably the most legendary Korean coach of all time, known to be super good. And he moved over to League of Legends and moved over to coaching Chaogu. And apparently he was not there, or like he was not re-signed. Like he's coaching again, but it was like a period in his contract where he wasn't actually the coach of that team any longer. Because I saw him at IEM in Katowice, and then all this drama happened. He assured me that he was not in fact coaching the team when this occurred. Because I was worried. I was like very startled that this could actually happen under his watch. And it turned out that it didn't, so...
Okay. So...
Interesting little sidebar there.
What do you think, Shaunz, of this season's Vitality? Why is this season's Vitality not lived up to last season's? What's wrong at the moment? Obviously, it's very early, but still, what do you think the issue is at the moment?
We are doing the opposite of last split.
Okay.
Hopefully. No. Obviously.
Okay. So the secret is to get that number 6 spot and make the number 3 team think you're really bad, and then you just come in and bash them, right? Yeah, it's clever. I like it. It's bold.
I would say there's a lack of experience, I think, from our jungler AD carry in terms of macro. And we are not on the same page, I would say. Because this game is really team game, so it doesn't matter if you have 5 insane players, as long as they don't understand, that's the worst, or they don't get along during the game in terms of play style, then it's really hard to play the game. Because for example, one gonna go base, one gonna go reset, one gonna go play squads, but then after we don't create anything, while the enemy team, even if they are worse, they just move as 5 and they just move on the map, they get their wards and then they get Nash and you lose. So I just think that's the main problem right now, is that we are absolutely not on the same page in terms of small things that matters a lot if you want to be a top tier team. So we can get 2-0 against Unicorn, we can get some points sometimes against Fnatic, we did 1-1 against Rocket 2, and the thing that changed compared to before is that Shuk and Yarnan were way more experienced and smart in terms of experience, I would say, in the game. So they would see more the abstract way of playing League of Legends that's called pressure, I think.
Okay. So
I know they don't teach macro in China, so it doesn't surprise me that Mighty Bear really didn't have any experience with it.
I mean, for example, Mighty Bear, because jungler is really influential, so we can talk about that. Mighty Bear is insane mechanically and decision making based on situation, I would say. Okay, he's number 1 in solo queue in Europe. It obviously doesn't mean everything, but it always means that this guy has potential. He's the best in Europe in dynamic queue, I would say. But it's good to be adaptive into certain decisions in solo queue, but when it comes into the team game, you have some sort of winning condition. For example, your top laner has TP advantage, then the enemy doesn't, so you want to make a dive bot lane, or at worst dive mid lane. And it's the same when, for example, you want to get dragon, then you want to all reset 1 minute or 45 seconds before dragon spawns, so you all are ready for the war and stuff. So when these things are calculated in a team environment, maybe from an experienced jungler, AD carry, or even the team, some of the veteran players that adapt to, this makes it harder. So even if you explain and you teach them, then if they don't click instantly on it, then it's harder to pull it off as a team. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
And I think one of the differences, too, that we're looking at is regionally. I mean, you're obviously Mighty Bear, like you're saying, number 1 in EU solo queue. Therefore, there is a certain level of mechanical talent you can extrapolate from that. And you're sort of throwing him into the fire, right? It's that you are going to be the team that is going to train him, but you're going to train him very visibly on stage. And I think where the difference is with the Korean teams is that this year the two players that have really been on top of solo queue have been Blanc and Crash. And both of these guys have seen very limited play time, and it's more of the Korean teams, what they'll do is they will give that guy experience through scrims, but we didn't even see Blanc at all in the spring season, despite the fact that he was on Jin Air the entire time. And we've seen very little of Crash overall. Some games that Longju was playing him, but for the most part, these guys are developing sort of in secret because they are not ready yet for the big competitive scene. But you're just doing the development more publicly because you sort of have to in this particular regard. But yeah, that's just an interesting comparison.
Yeah, there's a big difference between the way you approach solo queue that I would call more adaptive to the team environment that is called calculated. Like you can teach the game to anyone that is willing to understand or like just to adapt. Like a blank guy, I would say. Then just saying, okay, you have to do this, that right now. You have to do this with this. And then it's just full of like a long list where you have to do this if this happens, if this happens, if this happens. And in team game, this wins game. But in solo queue, if you do that, then either, but my jungler, my mid laner does that, but my support does that, what the hell? What should I do? Okay, I need to adapt. Da-da-da. This is good, but like sometimes, like you can miss opportunity if you are not calculated.
So at MSI, there was all this hype, especially in terms of like journalists writing articles and people in interviews about how like ranged supports was this new meta that everyone had to play, and NA had pioneered it and blah, 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 all the rest of that stuff. And everyone copied NA and how wonderful this is. Now that the actual season's begun and we've moved on a little bit, does any of that hold true? Do you think that is like the general approach? Has it changed again? What do you think?
Yeah, I think AP support are pretty good. Like overall, they bring a lot of utility to the team because, the why are the support AP there is because there is top laner tank. That's pretty easy. So, but right now meta is shifting towards carry. So, I still think like Braum is still a high tier pick because he's the champion that brings the most utility for like Jax, Irelia, Olaf, like any stacks that you would put. If it goes to 4 stacks of Braum, then the enemy that is done is dead. While with Maokai, if you get Braum, I mean, obviously it can happen because this is like mid team fight and everything is good, is boom. But if you get like Nami or Karma, then you get so much utility for the rest of the team that actually do damage that it's actually relevant. And yeah, so maybe right now there is a small change like in this meta. I think since like Gary came last week, I think it might change. Like I think Braum is high tier because of that in a way, but you can always play like Bard is insane. Nami is still good. Karma is pretty good. So.
Well, Braum's also great because of the way he counters Nidalee and also counters picks like Nami that, he just straight up block tidal wave, so that's pretty damn important. So yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's important to remember about the range support meta that 2 things happen. One, at MSI, Alistar was banned the entire time, right? So it wasn't really a range support meta, it was a ban Alistar meta. That was actually pretty huge. Also, I think teams did underplay Braum at MSI overall. So that's another important factor to consider. And then also post MSI, one of the reasons why we're seeing a rise in range supports is that Alistar has been nerfed, right? So there have been actual balance changes for this reason. But yes, I think that a lot of these AP or range supports are quite powerful, especially when we consider too the Alistar nerfs are very important because he still would be obviously played a whole lot because of the changes with the elemental drakes and everything that we're seeing there, make the ability to dive those turrets early very valuable. But since there's more damage from the turrets now, there's also, of course, only the 50% damage reduction on the Alistar. That change makes it so that you need other supports that are going to be impactful in the early game. And having a Nami tidal wave around a Drake fight is actually huge. Like just long-range CC, the bubbles that you can pull off is very important for safely fighting around a Drake, taking that Drake and snowballing the game from there.
Yeah, there were like only Alistar and Braum that were contested, and like Alistar got like super nerfed with the heal and the ultimate. Like 50% is like, for example, before we were considering that Rise was countered by Alistar or like Kalista Alistar because Like if you throw Alistar in the face of Ryze, then he cannot do anything. So right now, I feel like from experience from games, I feel like Ryze can kill Alistar with ultimate. So now it makes no sense right now to play Alistar if you think like that. So he's still playable, obviously, but he's like way weak. So
well, he's just. I mean, he's balanced now as opposed to being fucking broken.
So okay, Monty, that all sounded good and everything, and all the all these vague comments about patches and which champions count which champions. But can't you just admit that it's pretty obvious that NA invented this 3 months ago by a genius innovator called Adrian, and actually everyone just had to copy NA because NA was better. I think that's an easier explanation for everyone, right? It's more palatable, I think. It goes down easier and it tastes delicious. It's home cooking, right?
I love me some apple pie.
Okay, that's pure apple pie there, mate.
For the record, for the record about the champion Alistar, I don't know if you noticed, but we banned it close to every game on the summer split, spring split, Vitality.
Yeah.
Not because Kévin was playing it wrong or like because he didn't, or we didn't want to practice it. It's because the champion was an how can I say it? It's like an anti-mistake champion. Because League of Legends is more a game. You don't win, you make less mistake than the enemy. I would say, because you punish the mistake of the enemy. So Alistar is a champion that is hard to do mistake. Like you have to be insanely bad to do big mistake on Alistar. Like either you press ultimate randomly at the beginning of the fight, or you just like miss a combo. Okay, it can happen, but a Q flash combo W into the team. But this is a champion that was punishing us quite hard because he was so easy like to make mistakes. If he face check, he just press ultimate and goes back. So we just say, okay, we want enemy team to make mistakes, so we just remove Alistar. So now that's why, like Monty was saying, like the champion was pretty good, but because he got nerfed, then he's disappearing. We don't even need to ban it.
Okay.
Basically.
Who is, in your opinion, Shaunz, ignoring like how good his team is or where they are in the league? Who do you think the best coach in Europe is for drafting at the moment? Who has that? Who impresses you? Who has a really good approach?
I think like G2 and H2K are like the one that are like the most. I mean, like would be pretty classic because they are good teams, but
I mean, H2K is like the middle of the table, so that's a pretty reasonable pick.
But they're smart. Like I just say because I talk to them sometimes too, so I know they're reasoning behind some picks, and also when you see the draft, you're like, that's actually smart. And like most of the time, you can see that. Like for example, when like with Vitality, we were like contending to the first spot and like have good drafting or like surprising drafting, I would call whatever pick they would pick because we were in the same mindset. Like, oh, you're actually like picking this, but I know that if you pick this, you will get this champion. So and then you would see the reaction because like they were smart. So then it was directly considering that, oh well, they are doing good. But right now, like sometimes we miss one pick or one meta pick, for example. Let's say like it was in week 2, I think. To like this split, we didn't click insta that Vladimir was like super broken because like the practice partner that we play against didn't play a lot of Vladimir, so we couldn't like play too much against it. And then Vladimir was super broken, and we were like, oh my god. And like for example, I was calling, okay, this guy gonna pick this and this, and then we can counter with this and this, and it's okay. And then I see Vladimir, and I'm like, damn, can we play an Anivia nuke? But no, we didn't practice it yet. No. And then I watched, and they considered, so G2 and H2K, Vladimir super OP. And like, okay, maybe I missed something. And then I watched all the region, and I see like Vladimir banned close to everywhere. So I'm like, okay. And I missed one opportunity. So then that's why I concede that I was like 1 week late, you know. But sometimes I'm 1 week ahead, and I'm pretty happy when it happens. Okay. So I would say G2 and H2K.
What do you think about the current Vladimir, Monty? Because obviously the big hype is like his ultimate's like ridiculous healing.
Yeah, he's very good at diving. I really like the current Vladimir. I think it's exciting to watch. I also think that, yes, he's banned a lot, but it's not like there aren't counters for it. I think we've seen teams be successful at, like, for example, SK Telecom running the Anivia, and we talked a little bit about that earlier. I think that there are definitely viable counter picks to the Vladimir. It's not like he is incredibly oppressive on the meta. And if you can kite well enough and you can play around him as a team, it is possible to take those games.
I think Vladimir is like is broken in a way like where like his laning phase is good, But obviously, in team fight, you can play against it. I'm totally fine with it. But there's something that we don't even realize, and from watching like replays, you can see it, is that Vladimir can take priority against the 1-1-3. So I explained before, like for example, if Vladimir playing against Azir or playing against a Victor, for example, Victor should win against Vladimir. Like it's a good matchup for Victor in the early game. But once Vladimir gets Spirit Visage or whatever item, Proto Belt against other champions, he will just go on the sideline and start a 1-3-1. And like for example, if he's facing like Ezreal Karma, whatever, or Ezreal Bard, then Vladimir can kill them. So you need jungler to come to kill him. So it means that this guy requires 2 or 3 people in mid game to handle him. And this is where usually the Vladimir team starts to win, because like they just pressure so much the mid lane, and then it's hard time.
But you also don't have teleport on a mid lane Vladimir, because you have to take Ghost and Flash if you're actually going to team fight. So there is counterplay in that you can group up and try and force objectives and force Vladimir into those situations where you can kite him out. So that's, or, you know, make plays on the opposite side of the map where he can't TP to. So I'm just saying, I agree with you that like many strong split push champions, like Fiora, for example, back in the day, even if you get ahead on Fiora now, it's going to be the same story. You need multiple people to come into that lane to actually deal with the Vladimir or the split pushing champion. That's the nature of strong split pushes. That's the entire strategy of strong split pushes. But with Vlad, because you cannot take teleport, I do think that there is a level of counterplay there.
But this is where, like, when you draft with Vladimir, you always like a champion that can clear with or pressure. And like for example, okay, like that's right. If like you see Vladimir on the side, you have 2 solutions. Either you insta match him with the 3 people, and you don't wait until Vladimir push the side wave until the tier 2 to do something, or just force the mid lane. But in this case, it's like calculated. It should be at least like, guys, careful. I'm Vladimir. I didn't push yet the wave, so just concede maybe this wave, just maybe lose a little bit of HP, and once my wave is done, then enemy has too much, otherwise I just get the turret. And then after, when usually build like Ashe, Sivir, or Caitlyn with Vladimir, that just like clears the wave, and then maybe you lose 20% of the turret on the first wave, but then on the second wave, Vladimir is already hitting your turret, so you already get pressured. So you have to send someone, and then once you send someone one time, then it's over, because then the lane is pushed forever. And you have to take a momentum that is really hard, really harder than what Vladimir is doing, actually, I would say.
Okay. So, at the moment, the top team in Europe is still G2. And they had a lot of changes, because obviously they brought in the whole bot lane from Origin. But now there's also this crazy scenario where, out of nowhere, Kikis is just like gone from the team. And now they're going to use the Korean player. What do you think of G2 at the moment? Is this change with Kikis going to be a problem, do you think?
I mean, Kikis was pretty good. So, when you get a new player that is less experienced than your old one, I think it matters, because, like, the most important is now mechanical, because Expect is pretty good at mechanical aspect, but it's more about, like, what you do with the waves, how you handle them, how you TP. And this is where I think like he is a bit underwhelming compared to like what was Kikis, because I always see him like helping the team, but he's always like far behind in terms of farming or his waves. Like when he's TPing, you just look at the minimap, you look at his wave, and his wave is not properly done. So it just means that he has the good ideas to help the team, so he's probably getting cold. So TP, and he will listen. But what maybe Kikis would do is like handle the wave better, and then TP, even if he was a bit criticized for the fact that he is only a TP player, but he was not actually. He was like doing fine with the wave, and then that's where like I think they have to improve. And I hope for them, I hope for the best for everyone, that they will improve on that sector quite fast.
Okay. What do you think of the addition of the bot lane?
I think they're really good. I think like Sven and Mitty are like really really good players, and like it boosts a team to have those guys. So I never worked with them directly, so I can't like talk about their impact. But from what you see that they're really proactive. Like you can even see on the minimap usually the difference between someone proactive and someone that is not is when someone goes first and then you see other people coming. And it's the case with Mitty, for example. Like you often see him like doing proactive plays, and it seems like this guy knows what he's doing. And same for Niels, Sven, excuse me.
Okay.
I think they are proactive guys. This is the most important about them, and I like what they're doing in G2.
Okay, Monte. Yeah, okay.
I just think it's amazing they were even able to get that bottom lane. It's very impressive that they picked up those particular players. I mean, they're not only are they a strong duo, Sven's an extremely good AD carry player, but it's also the shot calling aspect that Mithy brings to the table. So it's about the best trade you could possibly hope for if you're G2.
Yeah.
And obviously, this is the dream, right? Because when Emperor's gone, and you've got Sven and Mithy, who arguably a better bot lane, now it opens up another Korean spot. Here comes this guy X-Spec. Here's what's the genius about this is Kikis, mate. You played yourself. Like, what were you doing with that? Like, guys, he tried to pull a Swift. He was like, if you guys are going to keep this reserve jungler, you know what? I'm leaving. Oh, top laner in this scenario. And then they were like, okay, you off, are you? Okay, see you, mate. It's nice having you. He's like, whoa, wait. He's like, well, I thought you said you were leaving, though. Yeah, I am leaving. Okay, well, okay, so yeah, it was great. Listen, I loved having you on the team. Like, it was great times together. We'll remember them forever. What, you're not going to kick that guy? Definitely not. So, what time are you leaving? 5, 6, we can get that other guy in. That guy's pretty good. Did you see the first games they played, Monty?
I have not seen the H2K.
He had a game where he like carried on Fizz and was like 9 kills or something. So, at least the first game was decent. Yeah, he played. They went 1-1 with H2K in one of those much-loved EU ties that we all know and love. No one wanted to see a third game of that. Who did? We've seen enough. Each team got to win a game. Now let's just imagine in our minds what would have happened in a third game.
Let's actually talk about the best of 2 situation, because I think that this has been really over-exaggerated by a lot of the EU fans, and I actually don't mind best of 2s, and I never have. In fact, I used to cast best of 2s and thought it was perfectly fine. In most cases. So I do agree that Riot was just absolutely awful in the way that they did their PR statement about why they were doing these 2 different systems. But there's a lot to like about best of 2s. I think that first off, from a scheduling perspective, you don't have the same extreme variable that a match could be 50% longer with another game if it goes to game 3. So it makes it much more easy to schedule from a competitive perspective. And I like the fact that every fucking game counts. Like, you get 3 times as many points for a 2-0 as you get for a 1-1. So it really rewards teams who are very consistent in their ability to win. And what I find so weird about Riot and the best of 2, best of 3s is you can watch. I made a vlog about the NA LCS tiebreakers being fucking head-to-head instead of actually being the game differential. And people are like, well, no, head-to-head should be it, blah, blah, blah. First off, no. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Thorin. You can go watch my vlog, or I can just talk about it here, too, is that there is a point to a league format. And the league format shows who is the best against the entire field of the league.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't show who is best against a specific team. Do you know what that's called? That's called a tournament. And in fact, in the LCS, you have a league that goes into a tournament.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
Here's the thing.
What playoffs are.
In terms of tiebreaker,
And the tiebreakers don't make sense because, okay, your first tiebreaker is because, of course, all the teams are tied until you set the criteria of how the league is set up and what those are going to be. So the first one, as we know, is going to be who wins the most best of 3s. So you're saying, all right, against the entire, you're saying the criteria is this is how a team performs against the entire field, right?
Yep.
And then Riot says, but head-to-head is next. So it's against the entire field, then against one team, and then game differential against the entire field again. That doesn't make any fucking sense from a competitive.
I think it's a mix between like classic soccer and just tournament. So it's weird. I agree, it's weird because like even if you end first in the playoff, first in the regular season, it doesn't even matter. You just get semifinal insta, but you will win. Like in football, or soccer, you would win the championship if you would be first. But now you are granted the fact that you're a semifinal, right? So I agree with that point.
Why head-to-head next? If your criteria is for the playoff seeding that it's whoever won the most best of 3s, meaning that head-to-head record doesn't matter. Record against a specific team. It's against the entire field. Why would you go to record against a specific team, logically, instead of going to the actual...
Like fewest losses, basically.
Yeah, which is still against the entire field, because you've already set up that criteria as being the most important first off. Now, why I bring this up in relation to the best of 2s is that, hey, in the best of 2 system, you are rewarded for every single game that you do well, right?
Sure,
because
yeah.
it's 3 points versus 1 point versus 0 points. So it is important. Riot says, in Europe, every game is important. In NA, they say, oh, every game isn't important, just if you win the best of 3s, and then the head-to-head record. Like, these 2 systems do not make any sense when compared to each other.
Yeah, I mean, as in general,
Like, what the fuck?
from watching lots of different esports games, head-to-head is actually a very weak decider of a tiebreaker because
That's terrible.
Because I give you an example, okay, where it doesn't make any sense. Because you're excluding results against everyone else, what if me and you got to the same score by me beating the best team in the league and you beating some lower teams in the league and you never beat the best team in the league? Like in this scenario, why is that arbitrarily not worth anything, But if you beat me once, then you get to automatically win that tiebreaker because we have equal points. That doesn't really make logically that much sense, Like in that scenario, if Riot really likes the idea that the 2 teams have to show who's better, have them play an actual tiebreaker then. There we go. Now no one will complain because it's an actual extra match you play. But the whole point is that one match has sort of like some hidden value that only then becomes activated if you then become tied later on. Otherwise, it has no effect. That's the part that doesn't make a lot of sense, And like you mentioned in the video, basically you're trying to emphasize a league quality, which is like results against the whole field. So the good thing about least losses is that's against the entire field. Whoever you get rewarded for not losing one game in the best of 3.
Which is, I mean, what are the tiebreakers in Europe, Shaunz? Do we even know? Is it head-to-head record again? I mean, it must be because it's a point-based system, right? But that makes sense.
Seems, I think it is like these are triangular. I think it would not change. I don't see why it would change. Yeah.
I mean, everyone knows the tie-breaking rules in Europe because as children, we all look forward to the tiebreakers as sort of like a seasonal gift.
So here we go. The tiebreakers are as follows: matches won. So basically, it's points, and then how many 2-0s you got, and then head-to-head. That makes sense, right? And for the people, I saw a lot of arguments from people who were saying, oh, well, in baseball, it's always head-to-head. Baseball doesn't use best of 3s. What you're talking about in any traditional sport, especially American sports with a long season, whether it's basketball or baseball or hockey, is that basically what I'm talking about, game differential, is what their fucking regular season result is. So you're basically arguing my system, which is game differential, then head-to-head, because they don't have best of 3s as the first tiebreaker on top of that, right?
Yeah.
As the first indicator of results. It's best of 3, then game differential, then head-to-head. That's how it should go.
My thinking, like in this, like there's just one thing that should be relevant is that we, as like league employee in a way, we know that the regular season is not even important, if you know what I mean. Like this is already weird, the statement, because like we know that even if like we are, for example, we are like a bit struggling right now, we are not like a top spot. We know that we still have, maybe we can get playoff, and we would be the same as like let's say G2 that are like top spot right now. We would be exactly the same. The only difference would be the semi and quarterfinals. Even if you lost like maybe 5 or 6 more BO2 than them, you would still be in the same thing. And I think this is where the problem is like they have to choose between having like either one big championship and then after maybe some rewards, like like Champions League or like National Cup. I don't know, like anything that can reward even more other club the team, or like either getting more tournaments like CS:GO is doing. But like this way of like we thinking that regular season is not even the most important is like kind of weird, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I mean, let me think where we were there. So we're on G2, the topic of G2. So Kikis has left. So okay. Actually, the interesting thing...
I do want to hear your thoughts on this whole issue about formats, because obviously you work in a lot of esports and have seen a lot of formats over the years, Duncan, so...
Sure, yeah. I mean, I thought it was obvious that should be a criteria, because otherwise you make it so that it actually doesn't matter if you go 2-1, in theory. Sure, you win the series, that's the benefit you get for still winning the third game, but... They should essentially excellence is going 2-0. So you reward excellence by making that like a key criterion, Like if someone literally went and won every series 2-0, I mean not literally everyone because obviously they wouldn't end up tied in that sense, but like the majority of them and the other guys just edge them out. Okay, great, the guy gets something for winning for edging them out, but obviously shouldn't be comparable in that same sense,
Yeah,
I
agree.
So I think that's kind of flawed in that sense. Admittedly, it's not going to come up as a big issue probably very often. But the whole scenario here as well is that most people probably didn't know what the tiebreaker rule was. And I hate scenarios like that as well, where, because this used to happen in esports a lot, like especially in games like Counter-Strike, we used to have group stages in every single tournament in the past of Counter-Strike, and there used to be like a round robin like this, and then quite often you would have a tiebreaker because it might only be a 4-team group stage, you're not playing that many games. And so I noticed that in most scenarios, no one ever knew what the tiebreaker rule was until their last game, until they thought, oh shit, we could tie if that happens. Then they look it up, and then they would find this out, Monty. They'd find out, right, well, that team already beat us head-to-head, so we might be fucked if they get the same result. So, again, even if you had a rule set that I didn't agree with, everyone should know it like from day one, basically, if possible, So you at least know what the rules are going forwards in that scenario. What do you think, Monty, about G2 losing Kikis? Because Kikis is an interesting character.
He is an interesting character.
He's trying to play League of Legends on hard mode. Like, what he does is he quits. He's been in about 700 teams. He's been on almost every team in the world. And he's trying to play every position. He's like that guy. Here's the thing, Monty. When I play a game, like one of my favorite games, Deus Ex, okay? It's a fantastic FPS/mini roleplay type game where you can play it in many different ways. Like if you play it very aggressively with like machine guns, you can play it like a Doom type game and just shoot people, or you can play it like Metal Gear Solid style. You can do like stealthy, and if depending on which you choose in the game, the story unfolds differently. You get to go to different areas. You choose different factions. You join. You use different items. So the difference is, though, most of those games I probably played like once or twice max. Like once I played it once, I was like, that was the way I wanted to play at that time, and then I just get a new game. Kikis is like that guy who's played through every game on every difficulty setting, and then he goes back and he tries to do it a different way. Oh, what's the quest going to be like if I'm a top laner this time, but for a team that's mainly based around something from Europlay? He tries it out, and that he's trying to unlock all the secret skins basically in the game.
I mean, like that's a good story. I think for like relating his history, but this time, I don't think he really quit it. I mean, he did because he said like I stepped down, but like it's a bit hard to be in this place if you're a pro player and you are like you won the spring split. You didn't have a good run MSI, and then you are carrying a bit the game, and you have this Korean that you don't know where it comes from, like because you are performing kind of good, and you are getting pressure by someone while you are doing good, and like it's not like it was like in any sports where like this guy was a substitute and was not playing. He was like taking a lot of time in Scream's time, as much as Kikis. That Kikis was doing good. So at the end, he was like, okay, so what does that mean? When I'm doing good, I will play. When I'm doing bad, I'm just gonna be like not playing because I don't even have my chance to be at least bad one day. And that's where I think was the core of the problem, is that he was getting pressured quite hard by the fact that they put someone to pressure him that he didn't need. And then after he maybe got triggered a bit and then said, yeah, guys, like just tell me either like I play and this guy is not here, either not. And because of like I think respect for the contract or the trade-off that was made with expect, they couldn't like ditch him, so they had to ditch Kikis. So it was kind of weird for me because I mean it's quite hard for this guy because he was doing good while coming from a jungle position, so it's even better. Sure. That's a bit sad for him.
I mean, he was doing okay. I think that it just depends on the direction that they want to go as a team. And if you're G2, and I said this before, when they made the switch off for Zven and Mythy, you want to keep upgrading while you're on top, while people want to come play for your team. And I understand that they wanted to run a 2 top laner system. To me, that makes sense because Kikis was limited in his ability to play the game at the highest level. He was a role player. He was a tank player. He was a low economy top laner, and that is not going to work in every meta. And Kikis,
like, there is one thing.
All right,
finish.
Say, is Kikis the guy you want to play Aurelia every game? I don't think he is.
I mean, he was doing good, so I agree with this last sentence because you don't really know, but he was doing good. However, from like coaching teams and like trying to analyze how it works, you cannot have 5 players in the same team that are insane about the game because they will all demand resources, they will all demand like help, they will all have their own opinion of the game, and this is where having like a player that has like less resource or less help or like a different mentality will like work, because you don't want 5 best players, you want one team that works together. It's like you have like 100 euros and you have to give approximately everyone 20 euros, and like maybe some guy that is like will do better with those 20 euros, you will give him 25 and we got right 15. But then if you bring someone that needs 25, then you will get 110 in total, and you cannot have 110, and then boom, they will explode. And this is where I think that Kiki was fine, because he was actually carrying in the area, which was a question mark at the beginning of the split. Can he go on carry champion? And he was. So from this point, then you should never like put him an ultimatum, or if you should, this guy's playing good, so just leave it. Well,
but
that's what I think.
Then if he was getting that extra motivation that he was playing well, then why is he so scared of expect?
Because he's getting pressure for no reason.
Saying, okay, I just don't see it that way, because the Korean teams will always have substitutes and will always be pressuring their players. That's one of the reasons why they're so good. Because the players have extra motivation.
We have substitute too, so I think I can go into this way. But there is difference between having substitute from the beginning and bringing a substitute after you win a LCS, I think.
Well,
and
they also
this is where like...
They also got dumped.
Here's what's interesting, Shaunz, is that actually this is what SK Telecom did. They won the World Championship, then said, Bengi, get the fuck out, mate. We're bringing in this brand new guy. Said, what? Then they won a bunch of other stuff, IEM, etc. And then they're like, you know what, Blank? Get out. Bengi's back. Like, what? Like, see? So actually, Koreans do that.
It's almost like it's a real sport, and people do things like it's a real sport, which is constantly look for better players and reward players for their actions. I don't know. I think that's weird, personally. Maybe you have some backup players just in case somebody goes out of form, like Blank or Bengi, or the game shifts a little bit, that you might have some sort of backup, because as a team, whole team, you might think, hey, that's pretty good.
Okay.
Weird.
So here's my philosophy on this, okay? I can see both sides, okay? So in terms of Kikis, the way Shaunz was presenting it here is basically how Kikis said it in his public statement, which was, he specifically phrased it like, he felt as though, yes, they were keeping him in the team, and he was still the starting top laner, and in theory, sure, they gave scrim time to this guy, but in theory, he was the starting top laner, but because they had this guy waiting there, and they were giving him scrim time, it did feel like, to Kikis, you know, if I play perfectly and I win every game, okay, I'll get to stay as a starting top laner. But if I have one bad game, this is going to be the sort of excuse they're going to use to say, right, time to bring this guy in, and then that, you know, I'll have wasted half a split, or it might, you know, my effort will be for naught. And basically, there's like unfair pressure on me in that sense. So I can see it from his perspective. If that was true, like if they really did give that guy equal scrim time, and they were sort of like, they were kind of waiting to be like, sorry, Kikis, you had a bad game, you're out, mate. I can get why that might at least offend you. On the other side, to be reasonable to the organization, Kikis, listen, mate, I know you think you're the best top laner, okay? You're trying to play the game on hard. You're trying to become good, okay? This is all I would say to Kikis. The reason why they got a sub for you, but nobody else, a Korean sub, is because you play with Trick, and he is already Korean, and he's very good. He's one of the best junglers in Europe. You play with Perks. He was the MVP of Europe, and he is one of the best mid laners in Europe. Very hard to find a Korean mid laner who's better. And now you just got the best bot lane in Europe. Who else would they get a sub for? Why would they get a sub for them? And what would the point be? You know, no offense, but if you were going to upgrade someone, that's who I'd have the sub waiting for.
That makes sense. That's true.
You do bring up a good point, though, which is that I think a part of this has to be on the coaching staff in Young Buck and the management from G2, because probably there was an opportunity to break this, to kick us in a way where it's not just like you play one game and you're going to get kicked. It's that maybe there was a way to salvage this emotionally for him, or present this to him in a way where he would have seen it as a positive instead of as a reason to declare an ultimatum to the team.
I mean, maybe even along your lines, Monty.
Having met Kikis, he's not an unreasonable human being. So I think that maybe there was a communication issue between the management and the coaching and Kikis himself about how all of this was going to go down that caused this to be a bigger issue than it actually was.
I mean, to tie together what you said, Monty, about what Kikis' strengths are, and what Shaunz said about the notion that Kikis is someone who maybe will sacrifice to the team and he won't demand all the resources. I think the approach to do this probably would be essentially what the Koreans do. You'd have to explain to Kikis, you know what? The problem in League of Legends right now, mate, is that the top lane keeps switching so drastically the meta. It goes from these tanks to these carry champions. So, you know what?
Yeah.
If it turns out we have to use a carry top laner, maybe we'll use this guy more. But you know what? If we ever switch back to tanks, you'll be first in line, mate. You'll be back in and we can use you and you'll still be a champion this way. And, you know, I think, who knows if he'd accept that, but to me that would be the reasonable way to try and present it, you know.
I think you also just have to
and make it a blank Bengi scenario, you know.
Yeah, just present it logically to him, and they say, "Hey, look, some of the best teams in the world are alternating players right now. It's becoming increasingly common. We still want you on the team. We still think you bring value, but we have to be as flexible as possible." I don't know. I really do feel.
But I think
like
he's playing good. So that's the problem. That's what I maybe don't understand is that.
Okay, Shaunz, he's playing good now in EUL.
Okay,
in EU, listen. One second.
They bring the sub because they thought Kévin would not be playing that good.
Okay,
I think
could be. You could definitely be right about that. Well, let me just ask you this though: he is playing good now in EULCS. Now, if he goes to Worlds and you have to play carry champions, that's the question, right? And you can't wait till you get to World. I mean, I know everyone does that. I know everyone goes to Worlds, and then they go, "Oh shit, I have balls as my top lane." I know that's what everyone does. Crazy, right? But it probably is a good idea to have a contingency plan.
Exactly.
You know?
Maybe. I mean, this is purely management decision in the end. So it's not Kiki said I want to sub. So
but here's the other thing, though: is if you are Kikis, when this happens. For sure, when you're at home, first thing you do, you get a bowl of popcorn, you get a glass of red wine, you know, you've got your feet up on the couch, you're ready to watch G2, the brand new lineup play, and you're praying that this guy shits to bed, right? So then you get that call. They got the phone next to you as well. You got like a special banana phone next to you. You're like, oh, any minute it rings. And then first game happens, right? It's HUK, one of the best teams. You know, they like have a lot of potential. HUK wins game one. Nice. See, I told you I was carrying on Novalia. But the problem is, game two happens, Monty, and game two was like a ruffle stomp of levels that even old G2 didn't necessarily do. Like in game two, I said expect carried. Put it this way, Trick had a stat line of 7-0-20. So that's like, he was like, "Hey, Yankos, you like these?" He was like, "What? These nuts, son." like that's like, they're shitting on everyone, mate. Like, it's not looking good. So we'll here's the thing, Kikis, we'll be fair. We'll keep track of expect in the next few weeks, and we'll see if he is better than you or not. I suspect yes, but we'll see. I'm not gonna prejudge. I'm gonna give you a fair shake, mate. Meanwhile, I hope you have a good career as AD carry of some challenger team or whatever your next adventure is. So, okay.
I don't even know if he's out of the structure though.
Maybe he's still going to come back
totally, or maybe like he's sub. I need to check this. I'm not even sure.
The problem is the way
he's totally out.
The way he announced it, it sounded like he was leaving for good. You know, like if you guys like can't take me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best.
Yeah, exactly. And then he left. He's raising. He thinks like they backstab in a way. I think. Yeah. But I joined Monty. I joined your opinion saying that I think subs are really healthy most of the time. Because like they drive and they should actually drive you to make the team win, because if the team wins, it means that you are winning in a way, and like this is
you're literally winning. You're right.
Point of view, like to say I am doing good is better to say that the team is doing good because we have this healthy relation all together, and this is where I think, like for example, if I were a player, I would actually go in a way where yes, I think it's healthy, but when people do not think like that, I can also understand their reasoning, saying I'm getting pressure for no reason. So why are you doing this to me? And then
yeah, but that's why I think that probably a lot of this can be chalked up to poor communication from the management, because Kikis has not been a player that has traditionally had a lot of problems or drama. And like I said, I've met him. He's really like a very level-headed guy. Okay. So it does beg your belief that it would be him throwing a tantrum here from what I know about him.
Here's also another factor to think about, Monty, is like, to be fair, if the management structure came to him and Young Buck comes to Kikis and he says, "Kikis, listen, we did pretty decently last season, you know, but we got to upgrade in some area, and so we can't have a top laner who isn't like super sick and can't carry the game. You know, we've got to upgrade the top laner, obviously." I'd just be looking over at Young Buck like, well, isn't this rich? This is interesting, Young Buck.
You are pointing out Young Buck, but I'm not sure it's him directly, though.
I was just implying that Young Buck was a shit top laner, mate, who for most of his teams probably shouldn't have been the starting top laner. So it's just a joke at his expense, mate. It wasn't a real analysis or anything. You don't have to respond to that, mate. It's okay. Yeah, here's the question, though, Shaunz. It's very easy right now when G2's top of the league and they won the last season to say, oh yeah, G2 will win the split again. Do you actually think G2 will be the best team at the end of this split? Is that who your money is on?
But yeah, they might. I don't see them struggling, or I don't see you never know, right? Like league is full of ups and downs, and you never see the downs and you never see the ups. So right now it's pretty easy to say, and it's like even like I think week 2 or week 3 back in the last split, I think Unicorn was doing good, Elements did decently good, and we were thinking, oh, maybe they're contenders, and no one was talking about G2. Maybe they did like 1-1 or 2-2, whatever. So maybe right now there is a team that is in the middle ground, hopefully it does, that is doing actually bad, but that maybe gonna improve. So it's too easy to say that G2 will do good. I'm always be careful with my words, saying like, you never know. Like this is a marathon, not a sprint. So.
Okay, what do you think, Monty? Are they the favorites?
So far, but again, who knows what's going to happen at the end of the season? I don't know what Riot has planned with patches or how the game could change, but
exactly.
They're looking super good. And also, it just depends how Expect is going to, join the team, play with the team. Yes, we saw the good results against H2K. I haven't actually watched those games yet myself, so I don't really have an opinion on Expect and his performance, but it's a very talented team on paper.
Have you seen G2 should have won. From my point of view, G2 should have won first game, I think, because like H2K was not playing good until Vander used the insane ult on Bard, then opened the Nash insta, where they were getting all pressure every lane because Perks was pressuring on Fizz on the side lane by like pressuring 2 people or 3 people. So just because of insane Vander ultimate, they catched up. So I think they called up. So maybe like it was for me 2-0 in a way, but.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the scoreboard right now, and they did have 3 Infernal Drakes, apparently. Hard to lose with that, honestly.
Yeah, they were controlling everything. They just, like, one thing, they just overextended to get mid-turret, and Vander did 2-man Bard ultimate into 2-stun a guy, open Nash, then, yeah, of course, the game is harder, because Fizz cannot clear wave against the side lane, because Monster is so good against AP, so, yeah, they just be unlucky. So, it was good from G2, like, they should have won.
What do you think, Shaun, of the new H2K with Freeze instead of Forgiven? What are the expectations for this team?
Well, I don't really know Freeze personally, but I think he's a downgrade compared to Forgiven in terms of mechanic, that's for sure. About understanding of the game and pressure, I mean, Forgiven was pretty good at pressuring the map overall, I think. I'll always, like, when he sees the wave coming, he will insta-push it, he will never be out of position. We'll try to reset at a proper timer. So, yeah, I just think Freeze is small downgrade, but in the way where maybe he's more fit to listen to everyone, I would say. And that's what was important about H2K, because I think they're already strong player with strong opinion. So maybe if you put someone, I think Freeze has strong opinion too, but if he comes into a cycle where like it's working, because H2K did pretty good in the season, if it's working, then you don't put too much your mindset into what should be good, you just accept everything, and that's what maybe Forgiven lacked of at the end of the split.
Freeze, I don't know if he's that much of a downgrade, honestly, when we talk about AD carries in terms of mechanics, because Freeze is very good mechanically. But Freeze also is a very stable presence within the team, in my experience, having, of course, had him as a player under my organization. He's mature, he listens to coaches, he is willing to play whatever the team needs in order to win. That's
a good point. Yeah, I agree.
So,
because for me, I mean, in line with what Shaunz is saying here, like in terms of actual players, I think they're both very good players. I think they have similarities if you just looked at their individual skills alone. But I think the obvious upgrade to having Freeze is like maybe he will fit with the team better, and he obviously has the mentality much more than Forgiven. I mean, Forgiven is like someone where he's like an incredibly picky eater who has too high tastes for his own good. So even if he's starving, they're like, oh, here you go. We've made you like a steak and some chips. He's like, only eat caviar, mate. So if you haven't got any caviar. And then they bring him some caviar and he goes, this is low-grade caviar. I only high grade. They're like, fucking hell, mate. Meanwhile, Freeze has been starving his whole life. He's been eating gruel, crackers, graham crackers, and then eventually someone just goes, would you like some normal stew? And he's like, oh God, this is so delicious. Please, another bowl, sir. So he's going to do whatever you want, He's going to do anything you say. As Monty knows only too well.
So TLDR is an upgrade, I would say. But
for the
he's
team,
a downgrade for me. Yes, exactly. But in itself, compared to Forgiven, he's a downgrade. But like he's the perfect fit for H2K, I think.
Okay. So, what do you think their expectations are for the season, though?
I think there are pretty good expectations. I think Jankos is stepping up. Like he was always good, but he was stepping up really hard right now, and he's really carrying H2K. Plus, H2K is pretty smart in macro, and has always been. So yeah, I think they have a good shot as long as they just play the game properly. I just think they were a bit slacking in the macro, I would say. I don't know if it's because you as a region we are all slacking in a way, or we are just like really poor.
Are you all slacking in macro?
No, I think we are not playing. For example, our team, I don't think we are playing the best in the field. Like the fact is that we are focusing on other things, maybe like new meta, new change. We want to try kill. Should we trade the Ocean Dragon for a turret? Let's get Ocean Dragon, but we lost a turret, so what's the best,
Okay.
So I think we are all a bit slacking, and I think H2K can just rise more and more. So yeah, like at the moment, I think H2K and G2 are the strongest team, with Fnatic being not that far.
Okay. What do you think of FC Schalke 04? Because when you look at the lineup of this team, it's like, oh, it's the leftovers. But somehow, this team has actually been doing half decent in the league. I mean, these are all cast-offs from other teams, We've got the infamous Steve, who we all know and love. Steve, very famous
I played with him. I like this guy.
That's all you need to know right there. So he actually played with you at some point. So
that's only what you need to know.
Yeah, he's obviously a very tenured player. We've got Gilius, the god Gilius, who is famous for literally being everyone's rebound girlfriend for a week before they get another serious relationship and a real jungler. They've got Fox, who everyone assured me in spring of 2015 was a super sick carry player. Still waiting for that to turn out to be true. Got Mr. Alice, who is just a stable AD carry from Denmark, who just cashes paychecks. That's all he does. And we've got Sprattle, formerly known as the legendary Promiscue. Sprattle there. Clever idea, by the way. Change that name. You missed a lot of cues and you were a bad player. Change your name. Just change your name at this point in time. Come back as someone news. How is this team doing half decent, Shaunz? How is this? It's like there's no stars on paper,
Yeah, I think like it's also worked because this team is together for a moment, obviously, and I think they all stepped up. Like Rales is actually good in the AD carry position. He's a bit underrated because it's Rales, so you know him. He's playing the game for 50 years right now, and like I've been every season here, every season average. So you don't even know about this guy too much, but he's actually good. And about Steve is the same. Like he's like improving more and more. And he's always being relevant. And what his problem was before, he was playing a bit too like conservative because he didn't want to feed, I would say. So it was like sometimes if you don't help him, he can be 20 or 30 CS behind, but he will still be relevant. And right now he's stepping up a bit. And finally, I think like Gilius is playing well most of the games, and it's really important that you are all on the same page when you are playing the team. And like when someone is in the tempo, everyone is in the tempo, and that's what you see from them. Even if sometimes a bit struggling into the late game decisions, they're actually a good team, so you have to respect that.
What do you think about Origin? So they lost Forgiven, and now they have Expect AD carry. What the fuck is this? Are they doomed? Is this over? Is it over?
They're doing no. I don't think it's over. They're actually what you said. They are doing the SOAS, but like they are really pushing far for this. Like,
they're really trying to do it to the max, right?
Place right now.
Yeah, the problem is you have to actually make the playoffs for that to work.
But they were a bit like quite in a disadvantage because when they got Forgiven, I think they got it like last day because they didn't have any AD carry otherwise because Sven just got taken by G2, so they had to find someone. So
if only they'd had a sub pressuring him. Then they could bring that guy in. Damn it all to hell. Okay.
And the fact is that they need to practice, didn't work with Forgiven, so they need to find new AD carries. So now they don't have AD carry. Hopefully, I think they will change AD carry. They will not be expected the whole season, I think. So they had like some of those problems that make their improvement go slow. But once again, last split was the same. They were like 7 or 8 at some point, week 4, I think.
Yeah.
And in the end, they managed to climb and to end really fast. So yeah, just maybe they're like doing some weird stuff right now, but you should be always careful because Origin, they can always end up in the end.
Historically, they have. You'd be right.
Yeah.
Historically, they did always end up doing well. Monty,
History is the best stat.
if they really have to use Expect Ace and
History is
AD
the
carry,
best stat.
that's a great line right there. Okay, if they have to use Monty Expect Ace and AD carry for the rest of the split, do you think like the chances of making playoffs is done?
No, I don't. I think Expect is a very innately talented player, and from the games that I see, he's been doing okay. They actually need? I don't know. It's going to be rough, that's for sure. There's no other way to put it. But I'm curious as to who they might get, because like they have to kind of turn this one around very quickly. And do you? Since I don't know the European Challenger scene very well, except for my old Challenger team, and Hans is not available because he's not 17 in order to join the team. Do you know anybody that they could possibly get that you think could be an upgrade over Expect? Because at least what you're getting with Expect is maybe you're not getting the best mechanics on an AD carry or the best understanding of the role, but you're getting a very good understanding of the game, right? And where the AD carry should be on the map. And that is an advantage. So you have to balance that against an actual AD carry player.
Yeah, I'm not sure what AD carry they should get right now. Like, truly. I mean, I don't really know they're probably finding that quite hard. Maybe they will get the Korean, who knows? But in the end, like, they will just find a new AD carry, that's for sure, because, I mean, XPK will be EUI, so in the end, I don't think it's good.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a worrying scenario. Like, this looks like the one where they're going to have to get a new player soon, otherwise, like, especially in this format, you can't afford to just be giving up points willy-nilly this early on. So it's going to be very tough.
1, 2 weeks, why not? But then 3, 4, I mean, that's a bit too much. Like, it's not like XPK is like insanely, as you said, smart about the game and brings good atmosphere, talks a lot, so give more information. More information means more decisions, more good decisions. That's true, but I think sometimes you have to still have the raw mechanics to, because you just need a good AD carry player, and XPK is definitely not an AD carry player.
Okay, I think actually, you know that saying, Monty, when one door closes, another one opens? The obvious solution here, if you're listening Origin, is Cop just left Echo Fox as a coach. So we know all he can do is come in, just play Lucian, just play average AD carry, don't talk to anyone, and then just be average at the end of the season. Remember, all you have to do is be average. You have to just be 6th place, and you can get in the playoffs. I feel like Cop, he's the medicine that I'm prescribing you right now, sir. Take him, see how you do at the end of the split, okay? Call me if it doesn't work at that point in time. So, okay, is there anyone else interesting we should talk about in Europe, or should we switch over to NA now?
Let's switch to NA.
Okay.
I'm fine.
First question, to establish if Shaunz is in fact a traitor and lacks self-esteem. So apparently it's the new trend. I understood in the past, Shaunz, why NA LCS players every season said the same story. I think this season NA LCS is better than EU LCS, and we are ahead of them in the meta. And then every season except one, the old tournaments where everyone gets to play each other, would roll around. Europe would do very well. NA would make some excuses, cry a little bit, and buy more European players. So here's the thing I don't get, is in the last year, somehow this mentality has infected Europe, which is now European players say the same thing. They're like, oh, I think NA is better this season. What do you think? Is NALCS better than EULCS?
Okay, I will give you my honest answer, my PR,
come on.
PR answer.
Okay.
So my PR answer is, I think NA is performing good. I think EU didn't show what they had to show.
Oh, I can tell this is going to be good. The real answer is going to be good. He's setting us up he's softening us up. Okay.
No, it's not going to be too much salt, but I just truly don't care. Like in the end, to be honest, like I really don't care about
the correct answer. Good one.
Yeah, I really I've never seen one. That's such a stupid thing. Like you think NA is better than you, or you're better than NA, because like first we all having struggled in Korea, so let's maybe help together. Maybe
exactly. Who cares?
NA and you maybe just work together. First thing. Second thing.
Cheering for the silver medalist on the podium. Who gives a fuck?
Exactly. Congrats to CLG, obviously. Props to CLG for ending second MSI, right? But I just think that this is not even like important in the end. It's first a meme. We all know that, but it's like you can never ever compare the potential of a region by watching their own matches. You never, because like the way they're playing is maybe not your way, but maybe because either they are smarter, either they are more dumb, and you can never know because you can never see what's the reasoning behind picking this champion or drafting like that or playing this strategy. You can never know, and this is why, for example, like sometimes in when like say like last split when I watch some Korean games, I was like, what are they doing? Like, what is this? This is so bad for me. I was thinking like that, but then after I just keep my calm and then say, okay, maybe there's something different. So I will try to understand why. I'm watching, and then I don't understand, or I do. And when it comes to the Worlds or MSI, and you watch the clash of styles, and then you see one is destroying the other, you're like, okay, so maybe they were better, you know? So in this scenario, you can understand, but it's not because you see G2 versus CLG or just look at two regions that you will know which region is the best. It makes no sense to me.
Okay. Monty, on this general topic, the reason why I bring it up is because last split is when it most irked me, because I thought last split in NA was fucking terrible. Like, I watched the Immortals games, and I'm like, think about when Fnatic was really dominating in Europe.
It was really bad.
There was very few games when Fnatic dominated Europe that they looked bad in as they won. Immortals could utterly dominate a game and still look actually sometimes mediocre in the game, which I was like, how is this possible? And then I watched some of the teams that actually did very well in the playoffs. Team Liquid early in the split, TSM obviously. Some of these teams were appalling in some of the games they were in. Like ridiculous throws, scenarios where they have no idea how to close. So I watched that and I was like, okay, listen, Europe's not amazing, but come on, like the top three teams in Europe looked pretty crisp, good players at all the positions. What about this split? Because obviously NA's changed a lot of the rosters, the whole hierarchy's been shaken up. What do you think of NA this season compared to last?
I think it's better, actually. And I think that one thing that I will say is that from what I've seen from top-level games, that the macro play, especially from TSM, is generally speaking better than some of the teams I see in Europe. But also Europe has a tendency to just fundamentally have superior players on an individual level. And I think that the longer the season goes on, and as the teams start to prepare for Worlds, come to Korea, do the boot camps, et cetera, that probably just from a talent perspective, that Europe is going to do better again.
Monty, when you said that, I got so triggered when you said macro being better and TSM. Not because it's not the case. It's true. They've improved a lot in that area. Here's why I got triggered. So, you know, I always say about TSM Legends, my favorite show on TV. It's sort of my Game of Thrones.
I like it too.
It's great, isn't it? So one of the things I love about...
I don't watch it.
One of the things I always say I love about TSM Legends, the joke I always make is that my favourite character is Reginald. And I love every episode where my favourite character comes on. But here's my second favourite character, Monty. This is the character that I love to hate. And it's Doublelift. And the reason why he's my second favourite character is because almost every time he talks about the game, he just says the most ignorant things, not in the sense that he's like a moron, just in the sense that like he's got a very special talent to be like wrong about everything. So I've seen so many episodes where they're in a team talk and, you know, like Yellowstar, if he was given chance to, might talk about what happened with the macro. Bjergsen might have some input, but Doublelift tells them all what went wrong and like where the jungler did the stuff. And I'm just sitting there like, I'd probably just let them talk first, mate. You know, maybe put in the odd comment. Here's the thing. At the beginning of a recent episode, Monty, there was a segment where Doublelift explains that understanding the macro right now in League of Legends is so easy. Now, the reason why that triggers me is because, first of all, he's Doublelift. Secondly, this is like a guy who is like, hey, I used to have like straight A's. When you were copying off like your best buddy Afromu's term paper every season, sat next to him like, oh, what's A7 or whatever, like, yeah. And also in teams that had good coaches. I refuse to believe, until proven otherwise, you've got a whole split to do it, mate. I refuse to believe that the macro right now is very easy to understand and that Doublelift, of all people, has mastered it all and it exists inside his brain as like a functional model. Essentially, Doublelift, I want you to sit down and to be grilled on here's a flowchart of what would you do in this situation. I don't think you're going to pass that test, mate. I predict you will not. So, explain what you mean, Monty. What have TSM improved in macro too over the team from last season that had all the talent, but yeah, obviously didn't have great macro?
I think that they're playing aggressively around pressure very well. Having watched and gone through, done the VOD the VOD review, which you can watch on my YouTube channel, of the C9 versus TSM series. I think that when they push a lane and they're playing around the minion waves, that they apply pressure super well to take objectives, to take Drakes. Great Drake control, know when to dive, keep track of the enemy. Their communication looks very clean. I think that they look like a good team overall. And as for the macro game being easy to understand, I don't think it is. And I also think that it reminds me, do you remember a while ago there was this post that was allegedly made by a pro player on Reddit? Did you see this, Thorin?
Yeah.
Where it was like talking about how the reality behind League of Legends.
Yeah. People thought it was Doublelift, actually. That was like the rumor people said, I think. You mean the one where they were like saying about how horrible their life was and all that stuff? I think people speculated it was, but obviously no one would know that, and also why would it be?
It would be hilarious if it was actually Doublelift, because it chains back to his discussion about the macro game being so easy. Because in that post, it was basically saying, it's not that deep of a game. Everybody just gets bored of it on the team, and we lose motivation. And yet, the question that I have to ask is, if it's so easy, if it's so fucking easy, in both of the instances where Doublelift said it and this random alleged pro player said it, then why the fuck do you lose to the Koreans every single time? Why is that?
Because they're just tryhards. I could totally beat you if I wanted to, but it's just boring to me, Don't really like winning worlds. I get chicks, mate. Do you get any chicks? You don't get anyone, Faker. I get loads of girls, mate. So congrats with all your trophies and that.
Macro is never easy. That's wrong. Like, you should never. I didn't remember him saying that, but if he did, I think it's pretty wrong statement, because obviously it's work as a team first, so it cannot be easy because you're actually putting hard work and you're putting effort to make this happen. It's because you make this repetitive that you think it's easy, but it's because you're doing it hard. And I don't know, I wanted to ask you a question about something that we see in CSGO, but we don't see in League of Legends. It's like coach being behind the players during the game. What would you think about that?
I mean, in CSGO, they even go further. Because you can do that, you actually can... we've even gone further than just even standing behind them. Coaches at E-League, for example, have a computer, and they're spectating in the game. And so as a result, there are even some teams... We've had this discussion slightly in the past on the show, because of this fact I'm about to say now, which is there are some teams who didn't have a good in-game leader, like a shot caller, who just got the coach to be the shot caller if they had, good players, So not all teams do that. That's actually very rare. But most teams now do have a coach who sits behind and at least can give some comments, or maybe he can give something he sees because he sees the bigger perspective rather than just one person's monitor, I mean, if you're asking what would that be like in League of Legends, I mean, to me, the main area it would be used in is probably what I just said there. It would be, for example, the obvious example I think everyone would go with would be Cloud9 would just get high to do that and stand behind the team instead of playing in a team, right? If he has wrist problems, that would be the number one way you'd use it. And then also, you could have someone tell a character, like say a Doublelift, what to do in this very easy macro situation, so he actually did it right. Obviously, there's oh my god, there I've just created it. I've just made the dream. I'm almost triggering myself right now, Monty. I now want that to come to League of Legends, not because of the high example. I want it to come to League of Legends so that then when Reggie fires a TSM coach, he becomes the shot caller while standing behind them, telling them all what they're supposed to do in that moment. That would be like porn for me, you know that. Every game they lost, I would just be like, I'd be a mess. I'd be an absolute mess, buddy. It'd be too much for me. It'd be the dream. Him just telling people shit like TP top now, and then them just doing it and fucking getting wrecked completely. Yeah, but it would be so good.
This is where I want to end up.
Come on, bring it in.
This open question meant this game right now is heavily towards macro and wave control and pressure.
Sure, yeah.
So it means I'm pretty sure that if you have a player or a coach that controls the game, he can make win anyone, because if you put down the hard work, for example CLG did maybe last split, then you're probably gonna win. And this is where I want to come back to the fact that you don't need to have the best player in the game to just make this work. You just need at least 5 players that understands what they should do at which moment to win the game right now. And this is where also League of Legends is a bit good and annoying, because if you like macro part, which I do, then it's fine. But if you dislike and you more prefer individual outplay and stuff, then it's a bit hard right now. So.
Well, I mean, what you're saying now, let's think of H2K last season. A lot of the big games H2K lost was very rarely because they lost a lane. It was very rarely because they were like poor team fighters. It was nearly always when they came to a macro decision that they just in the spur of the moment they did the wrong one. Like famously, this Fnatic game where Odoamne could have probably just ended the game, and he actually chose to come back and have a team fight when they had a weaker team fight comp. You know, these sorts of scenarios. Or for example, in NALCS, famously, maybe you're ahead and you have a comp that doesn't necessarily want to fight at Baron, but you try the Baron anyway. You know, examples like these is where if you had the coach behind, in theory, you wouldn't make that decision. Now, you might, but if you did, then obviously you could just go, well, you said that, coach, not me. Like, the difference is the coach can always be like, why would you do that there? I told you not to do that. Obviously, you can't say that. What do you think on this topic, Monty? Would it elevate the game if we had all these anime masterminds stood behind, like, go now, all three to the top?
It would be interesting. I don't really have a strong opinion either way about how good or bad this particular adjustment would be. I think a lot of coaches would obviously like that, and perhaps it would be an upgrade, but at the same time you have to I don't know, I don't really care if it was a universal thing, then maybe that would be okay. This actually has happened before, interestingly enough. So this was at MLG Summer Arena. They did allow in the very early days of League of Legends at one tournament, they allowed coaches to sit there with the players and actually be on comms during the game.
Really? I didn't know that.
MLG Summer Arena. That's the first time when a Korean team was in NA. It was when Blaze won, beat TSM. But Curse at the time also had Steve there, the owner now of Liquid. And he was sitting in, and of course the Blaze coach was there on air. And he was also on comms with the team. So it was before the LCS even began, there was one tournament that experimented with that.
Okay.
I just think this would not be fair, though, because if let's say the coach that can be an old player, veteran, whatever, just steps in, then he can dictate anyone how he should play, not mechanically, because if you have to trade or 2v2, you can just say, okay, you have to gain this way. Oh, guys, you just take this way. Now you have to go top, and you push the ward there. Go, and then it would just be like can you say pantins? I mean, just puppets. Sorry.
Yeah.
Puppets walking around, and you just help with puppets. You would actually be the guy holding the puppets. So I dislike this, and this is why also I think macro is so important right in this meta that is the heart of the war, I would say.
So here's the thing. Hold
on. Just to compare this to Counter-Strike 2, I think it is important to note that the difference between having a Counter-Strike coach and comms is that you can correct me if I'm wrong, Duncan, but for the most part, the coach is mostly communicating in between rounds rather than in the round itself, because you're basically calling a play and executing a play during the game. So the coach would have, I assume, less of an impact in the actual round as it's unfolding. Maybe giving us one or two call-outs, but because things happen so quickly, I would think most of the coaching is actually done in the dead time between rounds rather than actually in the round itself, whereas in League of Legends, because there isn't stoppage of play, that everything that the coach would be doing would be much more real time, like Shaunz is saying.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, except in the scenario, like I said, if he was the in-game leader. If he actually literally is the leader, then he's just the same as every in-game leader. Maybe he calls during the round as well. But in general, you just give the point. It's like American football. It's when you have the timeout, then you reset the call.
Yeah, okay.
So, here's the thing. I can see both sides of it. If I just want to watch the game and forget about who's playing, it probably would actually be cooler if you had all these strategical geniuses who essentially, we aren't playing League of Legends anymore. They're just playing StarCraft with 5 units. And then they're just playing the map, wrecking the other guy. That would be cool, right? Some of them would pull off some great stuff.
Yeah, there is something to like about that.
Sure. But the downside to that, Shaunz, and the reason why I don't think it will be as good in a sense, is that right now, what makes you really good at macro is you have a sick coach. Sure, you probably need a good coach, but then it's how well can these 5 players pick up on his approach and then try and make his approach work in the game, like when they reach a scenario where, okay, he tried to prepare them for it, but it'll never be exactly that scenario. So there's kind of a beautiful aspect there where he's trying to teach them themselves how to think in that situation.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll never be exactly how he wanted you now.
Yeah. You don't have to teach otherwise. You just have to say, okay, guys, just play the game, and then after, when you LCS, I will just sit behind you and tell you what to do.
Because my problem with the other scenario is the first one of the one coach just leading everyone like puppets. That's really just the secret coach's fantasy that he could do that. And here's the reason why I wouldn't like that, Shaunz.
Shaunz?
Here's why I wouldn't like that, Shaunz. Because then then someone could just pop it doublelift around the map, make him look like he knew what he was doing, and then he'd win all the championships because he's got sick mechanics. I'd rather good old doublelift, who definitely understands macro completely, it's very easy, shows us that second by second in the game by making decisions which impact his teammates' future success. That's what I'd rather see. Okay.
At least you could say that macro is easy because he's actually not doing anything.
Exactly.
You could say it.
It's very easy when someone does everything for you. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I just think like it's always like a bit at school, like right. For me, the coach is a bit like a teacher. Obviously, we have different roles, but. Like as a teacher, you just learn to the pupils that just like learned and then tried their best during the exam. Exam being LCS or Worlds or whatever. Sure. And this is like the more healthy style. This is why I wanted to compare a bit CS:GO to C, but I'm not up to this because I think it would be a big downgrade to what the player should bring to the table. Apart from mechanical, so just open question, but I disagree with it.
So okay, a team I want to ask you about, Shaunz. It sounds to me like I think you like this team, okay? Because when you were talking before about the reason why you had Ghanbarzadeh, like the top meta, you were like, oh, Uni and Reinover, they are so good. This is how you play to get. Well, they still play, mate. They play for Immortals, and that's one of the top teams in LA. You like Immortals? Are they good?
Do I like them? I'm not sure. I mean,
do they have good macro?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like or I don't dislike. I just watch what they are doing. Like, for example, I remember this game I watched. I think it was NV versus Apex, and well, game 2 was Jarvan. Game 1, like anyway, was other stuff. But
that was NV Apex. That was NV Apex.
Yeah, okay. I really like the macro.
To everybody.
Yes, exactly. So I watched like this build through, and then. To answer your question, Thorin, I don't like or dislike a team of the way of their playing. Okay. Just like watch what they're doing with the champions and what they learned so far. And the Immortals are actually doing good. Or
okay, what are they good at then? What are they doing that's good?
I just think like Reinover is obviously underrated compared to before. Now it was rewarded last split with what it was bringing, and like usually they have this thing that will bring them to the top tier of the table. With like Uni or like Pobelter or like solid players, they will just like instead of taking those safe 90-10% chance win rate of a play, they will just take like 60-40, and most of the time for them it will work out because they actually have this thing that make like things happen, like pulling out the 2 versus 3 or pulling out 1 versus 2, or just like having a better warding and like a risky warding because you would say, oh, but this enemy should be there. But they are not because like Immortals just taking bets all the time, and I think this is why they're successful. So I can't really say that I like or dislike. I just think like they are doing well at what they are doing, and I prefer like saying I like a team like NV, for example, because like I can refer myself to what they are doing. It makes sense for me. Right, Immortals makes sense, but I don't think this is more like innate in my end.
So what is it you like about Envious then? Because obviously they used to be this like quite bad team called Renegades until they, by whatever means, got a bunch of good players and did better towards the end of the split, and then changed to a better org that's like really good and like supports all the players and treats them really well, very safe environment. And as a result, they're now responding to that. Now they're just responding to that really well, and you can see when players are happy, they succeed. So now they're doing quite well. They're third in the league. What do you think of Envious? Why do you like them? You said this is a team you do like. You understand what they're doing. What are they doing well?
I think they are. You can see from like the way they play, like they care about each other. I would say, like they know.
This is a movie now. Okay. We don't leave a man behind. Seraph's like, I tried that before. I tried it on my own. I'll never leave another man.
You should leave man behind in League of Legends. Okay. I will explain why. But first, like when they're creating a macro plan to open up the mid game or to create opportunities, you see that they have a common goal. Like if you replay their movement, most of the time you know that they want to bring this wave to put down the vision, to open up a dragon or a dasher or whatever. You see that it makes sense what they're doing. It's not like they will just take a bet and then go ahead and then maybe win the team fight. And secondly, like this is where I like them, is like they are not afraid to leave mine behind actually. Like if this guy is overextended or your teammate, or if your teammate is like baiting people, instead of saying, oh, whoa, no, you're gonna die, please save him. They will be like, hey, nice job, buddy. We will go in the other way and we will actually try to win. And it's what I like about them. This is like I think from like just analyzing their game, like I just think they're smart.
Okay.
And this is what I like. And so I don't know if it's because they have like insane shot caller or insane like macro decision, insane coach, or just like just they're just good.
Just better jerseys.
But they actually they, as five, they really mesh as a team because they are just what they are, and I like that.
Okay, Monty, what do you think of Envious?
I think that there have been some mistakes that Envious has made. People are going to point to the Immortals game and say that they should have done certain things differently or played around certain objectives in not the best way possible. But I think for the most part, TSM and Envious have been the best macro teams in the league.
Yeah, it is
Yeah, I think both of them have shown quite a bit of skill in terms of how to play the map, and I think they've proven to be a pretty good team so far. Surprisingly, I mean, I say that, but Renegades did win the last 9 consecutive games of the season, and people were memeing about Seraph saying, "Oh, we're the second best team in the league." Well, this is kind of proving that, guys. Kind of proving that.
Do you know
3 of the same players?
Good Lord, Renegades. Yeah.
Are you able to tell me anything about the coach? Because the coach used to be on like Xenix or something, right?
Yeah, Miracle is a former Xenix coach from back in the day. Actually, Expect, he did coach Expect, I believe, at one point in time. Okay. The new, because when Expect was on Xenix, and he came over. He was picked up by TDK after they dumped the old CJ coach, which they had previously. I don't know too much about him. I've never met him. So.
Right, okay. Just wondered because I knew he had some sort of background in Korea. So okay, here's the problem with Envious though: is when a team does this, where out of nowhere, they suddenly are challenging for the top, and it's the first time you've seen that actual unit of players working, etc. Sometimes that just lasts a few weeks, and then whatever, a player goes down, or the team gets figured out, or other teams overtake them. Let me ask you this, Shaunz, if you have to predict now, where do you think Envious will finish the season? Do you think they continue this success? Do they get better? Do other people overtake them? I mean, at the moment they're ahead of Cloud9, they're ahead of Apex, they're ahead of Liquid, CLG. There's some good teams below them. Maybe not Team Liquid. I probably shouldn't have included them there.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about like predictions like that. I'm not really up too much to say because, once you work in this world, League of Legends or like anything, that like the two, or I mean, okay, build 3, the 2 build 3 that you're gonna see are like can I say it? Like emerge part of the iceberg.
The tip.
Yeah, the tip.
Just
the tip part. Because you will, and then after you are gonna analyze what you saw there, but you don't see the whole rest. So
no, and the tip alone isn't important. It's everything else is more important. The tip is the first thing you encounter. The rest is vital, though. Okay.
No, but that's what I think.
I've had this conversation many times, but okay.
So you already know how we gonna end then. And what I'm saying that the other side you don't see can be so influential to the tip of the iceberg that whatever I'm gonna say right now is not even relevant because I don't even know everything. So you can I can say oh my god, Envy is actually being good. I'm pretty sure they're gonna do well and run the regular season and playoff. But then after, boom, maybe in 2 weeks something we didn't expect. Oh, but then they change this player because he's toxic, or so they are actually scrambling right now and they're not playing good. So. I just think that after 4 weeks, it's really hard to predict where a team will be because from experience, you can see that it's hard to predict anything right now. So as long as they play every week from week, you can predict things, but maybe not in the long run.
What are the pros and cons, Monty? What would suggest they could continue on, and what would be the potential downfalls, do you think?
Potentially a switch back to an AD carry meta because Laud is still a rookie. I think Laud has defied expectations, especially from when I was watching him substitute for my team as well as play on Ember. But remember that this isn't like a bunch of newcomers. There are 3 pretty veteran players in Proxen, Seraph, and Ninja on this team that have played in a variety of different organizations around the world. So I think it's pretty reasonable to have a degree of faith in them that they are going to be able to come out of this season with at least a decent record.
Just remember though, Monty, I don't want to hear any of your conspiracy theories that Koreans just have a lot better players who just in general are better at the game. Just that this guy Proxim was just playing in the middle of nowhere in fucking Japan League and now coming in an LCS out of nowhere. He's ball out of control.
How is Proxim veteran? I don't even know too much about this guy. So what did he do?
He was on IM previously.
Sure. Okay. And then he was on this Japanese team. Then he was an Impulse, and now he's on Envious. Okay, he's pretty good, right?
Yeah,
I mean, at the spring split he was not the best though, but now he's like maybe it's about the team, right? Maybe he was on
Xenix, excuse me, not IM, and he was on MKZ,
which is basically IM.
Yes,
IM alumni of IM.
That's why I thought he was on IM.
Okay, that's where people from IM go to die.
But you see, it's often like truly like right now in this meta, it's more about how people interact to each other rather than how someone's play. Like, I would say, for example, like a jungler will do a good gank, and then after he will say, wow, this jungler is so good, there's so much impact, it's insane. But what you don't see or what you don't hear is the mid laner saying, okay, dude, you come in 40 seconds, I'm gonna freeze the wave because I did a good trade, so now there is ward in the right side of the map, and I know this enemy is there because he just got the blue, so I think you're free, your gank is free. Yeah. So after your jungler gonna come, like then ta-da, there you go, you gank, and you gank. So it just means like, for example, this guy Proxin, and it's the same for everyone, it's maybe because he didn't click, I would say, with one of his teammates, so he looks pretty poor. And it's the same in League of Legends, like everywhere in the world. Like you just connect players with how they think rather than how they are skilled, I think.
Okay. Shaun, do you have a theory as to why CLG is so much worse than MSI CLG?
Origin.
That's another team. So, are you saying we have to go back to the origin of the team? Well, yeah, I mean, that hotshot guy who made the team, and then there was the big fat No, okay, what does origin mean? You have to expand upon that. You can't just say a word.
Okay. I tried. I thought you would understand. Okay. I will. So, origin did...
I see how your coach works now, mate. You just go, they go, coach, what do we do? Macro. And then you just walk out the room like, oh, I told you what to do. Just do macro. There you go. See ya. I'm off.
Macro is easy. Never leave 2K16. Okay. But
so, what is the origin connection?
You have to think that like it can always happen. Like once again, this is ups and downs. Like one team, you once you're 1 year you are in up, you never know when you're gonna go down, but you will at the moment. Like it can be like down or like up, but like they went for origin and then like semi-final at Worlds, they come back. They're a bit slacking, or they don't want to understand each other. Boom, they're like doing really poor. Then one day they say, "Hey, maybe we should play," and then boom, second place. And the same for CLG. Like they played MSI.
This guy's literally
they got a bit shattered.
Normally, so coaches, like you say, Shaunz, when you were trying to describe what happens with a gank, you broke it down in all these steps. Like the viewer would just see the jungler comes, he gets to kill the gank. You're like, no, that's not what happens. The jungler he is getting called from mid lane. He's like, I freeze the wave, and then I put the ward here. You come in 2 minutes, and then. But when you're talking about a whole team's entire split, you're like, 1 minute we are at Worlds, we finish top 2, then boom, they are 7th place. The next season we get going, and boom, we are second. Like you just like yada-ya'd an entire split there. Like, okay,
but you need to know is that I'm really positive. Like I always think like optimistic.
Yeah.
So when the team is doing bad, I will always hope that they're doing good, and when they're doing good,
he is in tune with CLG. It's all about faith. You just got to keep the faith, exactly. Right? Yeah.
Oh my God, you spoiled it. No.
There we go. You got to keep the faith.
I wanted to say the end. Like I have faith, like CLG.
Right there we go. You got to keep the faith. Okay. Future CLG coach, of course. Just waiting for that job. Waiting for the call up when he can. So okay.
That's the thing. Like,
we'll do one more team before we end. So you can pick. I'm going to give you 3 choices, and you can pick one of them, Shaunz. You can pick Cloud9, you can pick Apex Gaming, or you can pick Team Liquid. Which of the 3? Pick one to talk about. Which one?
Cloud9.
Cloud9. Okay, so what is the deal with Cloud9?
Okay, so I learned how to play with Cloud9.
You know how to play against them?
I learned how to play the game by watching and understanding Cloud9. So when I was like, maybe you don't know my background, but I was like a jungler and challenger before like starting coaching, and like I improved my aspect of strategy of the game, or like all the abstract things that you maybe don't understand if you just play like normal, from watching Cloud9.
I don't understand shit, mate. I'm no double lift. I don't understand the game as easily. It doesn't come to me in that same sort of way. So okay, you were learning the game as a challenger jungler.
No. But even like when I was playing, like I was not even understand. I was maybe good like in a certain aspect of the game, but I was not good at understanding in the team environment the game. And obviously, if you don't put down the hard work, you cannot be like you can understand, but you cannot play.
Yeah.
Then after, and I tried to play while understanding, and this is where like I was a bit hurting. I was like, what they're doing there is good, but this is so smart, and they have to do so much stuff and think with his teammates and stuff that alone I can't really do it. So I'm gonna say, okay, what I'm gonna do is like I'm gonna coach, and I'm actually gonna tell like people how my feelings are or my way of playing is, and maybe as a 5 they can learn each other and separate the way. So for Cloud9, I think they were like really, really smart. And like for example, Meteos back in the days was like for me the most efficient jungler like like I've ever seen. Because maybe not in like Korea was better in a way, but I was really referring to this guy because like he was not losing time. And you see where like I understand this. Then after you see obviously high shot calling, that was like a bit over like used thing because he was just putting 5 people in the same page. But
that's pretty hard. That's nothing to really be overrated. Putting 5 people on the same page, pretty tough. Can be tough to do that, you know.
I mean, it was more shot calling. They were not the best in macro, but like shot calling was really good because they were trusting this guy, and this is where it shows that when they were all following each other, you see, but why are they doing that? This is so smart. Oh look, the wave bot is like that. Oh, like this is magic. The bot lane is obviously crushing this turret when they're getting Nash. So they're just baiting people. So I just learned the game with them, and I think like overall they're also a really good org from the fact that they are just trying to like keep their players always in check, always like being respectful to everyone. They just give everything pretty good, so I really respect Cloud9 for what they're bringing to the table.
Okay. What do you think of Cloud9, Monty? Because obviously we talked about them on the last show, but they're doing pretty decent.
They're doing decent. I think they're having communication and synergy issues. This is another fact that I brought up on my VOD review between TSM and Cloud9, is that they don't play very well as a unit, and even though they have pretty good Drake control, like over 50% overall, and they have a very powerful early game, like they're getting up over 1,000 gold on average over other teams at 15 minutes, it's not actually translating into a whole lot, or at least not into a first Drake. Like they're very low at getting that first Drake. And against Cloud9, when I was watching them, they were just giving up the first Drake for free. They had multiple opportunities in the games, every game of that series, to go in and take the Drake. And they just didn't do it. Like they just don't take the early objectives. And it allowed TSM just to kind of push them all over the map. And they weren't playing around pressure very well. Like there was a lot. They just looked very passive.
Yeah,
they sort of rolled over. They sort of rolled over and died in that series, and I didn't really understand why.
Like you need those decisive. You need to be decisive in the game, and they
were reacting constantly. Yeah. So exactly. I think that they have a lot of talent on that roster. Also, Meteos is pathing. I don't think Meteos is back into his old form yet. I think his jungling is not great right now.
He's Rek'Sai, you mean?
Yeah.
He fell on the Rek'Sai so far. I mean, like not only, but this is a champion he plays so much. I just think right now they just need like these decisive people, because this is sometimes what you need in League of Legends. Like for example, someone like Yellowstar, but maybe you think he's like maybe sometimes lacking in mechanics, maybe he's like sometimes lacking his like roaming ability or whatever. But he will be the guy that will just know that at this exact second, the best thing to do is this. He will know it. So instead of just not saying anything or thinking maybe we should do that, he will just say do it. And then this is where like it shines, because you need those decisive things. It's like in every project, like when you are working in the world industry, like anywhere in the world, like you have those people that work really well, but when it comes to take decisions, like they don't even care, because they just think, well, we just work well, now what do you do? So you need this guy that usually called a manager that just say, okay, boom, these things will be done like that, and then boom, everyone say, oh wow, this team is so good, they are actually like doing this project together and make this happen. So I just think this is where like decision making needs about Cloud9 right now.
Okay. Do you have any? I can hear myself there. Do you have any parting remarks to end the episode with the Shaunz? Do you have a message for us at the end of the show?
Not really. Like just think like from the part we didn't talk about is that I casted some events. Maybe you knew it. About like Worlds, an All-Star
Okay.
for the French TV. I was like seated not that far from you, Monty. And I think that right now, I don't know. Maybe we can talk a bit about like the viewership of League of Legends and
Yeah,
how
okay,
the
let's
game's
talk about that.
evolving.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because this is a subject I also want to hear you because it's also a chance for me to understand your opinion.
Okay.
We can discuss maybe about.
So what is the issue? What is on your mind about this?
Okay, so from me, obviously, like we don't really know if League of Legends is falling or is it rising. Okay, maybe from viewership you can think it's falling, but there's something I don't understand is why League of Legends is not trying to Riot Games, sorry, is not trying to
Advertise?
their game. Advertise, sorry, their game. Like for example, I would totally see something like as like a TV. Like for example, between the loading screen when you're launching solo queue or a normal game, you just say, "Oh, remember this thing happens at this hour," like a TV show. Like when you want to watch a TV show and you don't know what is going, you see a random ad saying, "Oh, we have this super new episode of Game of Thrones coming on TV or whatever," and then you say, "Oh, maybe I should watch it." And this is what I think about League of Legends. Like sometimes it seems like they are doing overall well with their game, but they are not even advertising it. So I just want to hear your opinion about that.
Okay.
I do think that's an interesting idea. I hadn't even considered that, having like a notification during a loading screen that says, "Hey, in 5 hours, like this is going to be the match in the ULCS." Look, man, if you ask me why Riot does things or doesn't do things, I honestly don't know most of the time. Why doesn't Riot have sponsors for the LCS? You know, E-League seems to have quite a few sponsors right now. Seem to have the Buffalo Wild Wings and the Arby's. Why the fuck is it so hard to get this sponsorship done for Riot? It's kind of a mystery. You know what I mean? It's
But they have enough money, maybe, so they don't need the.
No, they don't
subsidiary.
because
they
Worlds
don't.
only
I mean,
has a couple of million. Remember, so they don't.
That's what they
don't,
should think. That's why they are shooter.
Yeah, maybe they think that. You
Yeah,
might be right.
exactly.
That might be their perception. No, here's the thing. I'll go one further. I'll take your idea and I'll add an extra level to it, Shaunz. Here's a way you could hook someone in who's a casual player. Say you lock in Draven and you're going into a game and the loading screen's there. It says, "Oh, you are a Draven player. Freeze played Draven in ULCS last week against whoever it was. I can't remember. Was that Fnatic he played against?" And then they're just like, "Maybe you will like to watch the next H2K game, which is on Tuesday at 7 p.m.
the
whatever
VOD.
one of those two." I think that would even be a way to like hook in some casual player, because then the idea is if he's some like Lee Sin main or something, he'd probably want to watch some really good Lee Sin player, Yankos or something, play it in a game and go off. I think it would be a cool way to tie the two things together.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, I just think like right now I don't understand, but Riot Games, they have only one game, and so far, if I remember an interview a few years ago, like they want to produce other games, one or two, but I don't know what.
Still working
don't
on
understand.
making that first one good, but
I just don't understand. Like, if you want your game to be healthy and to still be working, and you have all the powers on this game, why don't you use it to advertise your game? Like, use it. They could do whatever to the players. We should accept. We can only accept it. Like, if they put something on the loading screen, then you have to accept it. What do you want to do? Just then, my God, this game is so bad. They are advertising their own game. Oh my God.
also,
Like, just
Sean,
go for it.
I've just
Do it.
realised a
Put
hilarious.
like replay Twitch or YouTube link in the client instantly. Like they shows the game that are happening, and boom, you get one more viewer. Like, everyone that is in the client, and instead of just saying we talked with this guy about fan art, and maybe he will show his opinion. Like just like this is viewership that's important right now.
So also, an unexpected side benefit I hadn't thought of with my idea there is think about how much it would trigger for Kévin if he's going into a solo queue game and he locks in Lucian and it's like, "Oh, do you like Lucian? Reckless had a really good game on Lucian last week." He'd tap out, right, and he'd rage quit the game. He'd be out. That alone would make that idea worth it. I think we should do it.
This one.
Yeah. That's good, right? That's good, right? Yeah. So, okay, do you have a final message then before we end?
Wait.
Do
No,
you have something else,
I
Monty?
do want to talk. I do want to talk about the viewership because I
Okay.
think that is something that's kind of important to because the viewership is going down. I mean, there's no way that you can.
Is it?
Yes.
In what
Yes.
regions? In what manner? Is it just overall?
In all regions.
Okay.
In all regions. I mean, the viewership is lower this season. I've noticed it in Korea when I look at the streams for EULCS, and of course, there's a lot of people who are like, "Oh, well, there are a lot of different languages for EULCS." Still, though, I mean, I've been on EULCS where it's been like 60,000. I've seen NA games that were 60,000. It's not. It's still a lot of viewers. Don't get me wrong. but it just seems like we're not having those same highs. I remember watching, even in the spring, there was a match like a CLG TSM regular season match that I think had over 300,000 viewers.
Yeah, true, exactly. Maybe 400.
I have not. Yeah, I have not seen that at all this season. Also, there are other metrics. Personally, I've noticed that my Twitter growth as of the start of the summer season is way down. And I don't know whether or not that's like Twitter slamming, like coming down on a bunch of bots, but it gave me pause to see like how my Twitter growth is less per week by a substantial margin than it used to be.
Here's the thing, Monty. I know what you mean by that. I understand why that would be your metric, but that just really does feed into that whole thing where people think you're like a narcissist. You're like, League of Legends is dying. Why? I'm not getting as many Twitter followers.
No, I mean, when you see a trend over time.
Sure, obviously, I'm just saying that's like the easy way to resolve that.
And there is a drop off in viewership at the same time in pretty much all regions, as far as I can tell. Obviously, Riot's the only one that actually has those metrics. But when I compare it to, say, when I compared MSI in the West, I think Eastern viewership, obviously in Korea and China, Taiwan, I mean, I think these regions are doing fine for viewership. But when I compare it to, say, the MSI to the major, and I see 1.6 million concurrent viewers in the West for the last CSGO major, and I look at the MSI finals, and there were not 1.6 million Western viewers for that at all. Like, CSGO is the biggest esport, at least in terms of peak concurrent viewership for big events, I think.
Okay. Do you have a suggestion to fix this?
Few games that matters in CSGO. Like, there are fewer games that matters, I would say. So people really want to watch it. But when you get those BO2 or BO3, that you have like 9 weeks of BO3 that doesn't even matter, because like you have then after in playoff where like quarterfinal, the semifinals are like decided by the seed, and then there's finals that matter. Then okay, you did everything like that to arrive to 1 point. Who is champion? And I think it's too long. That's basically this. And also, my second point is that there's something like few months ago I wrote it on Twitter, and I was like, I really don't understand why Riot is not actually trying to build a World Cup with nations. This is for me so obvious that this is the best code you could ever make, that I don't understand why they're not doing it, because this was actually every sports have been doing, even CSGO.
I mean, WCG was that.
It's so good. Yeah, Riot can do it. Like, just instead of MSI or All Stars.
No. We really don't want to get rid of MSI, one of the very few tournaments. Instead of All Stars, I'll give you instead of.
Okay, All Stars. Let's say All Stars. Like,
to me, All Stars is the most worthless tournament. So actually, I think this would be a cooler way to rebrand All Stars.
All Stars, and you just put in December, France versus Korea versus Sweden versus USA versus Canada. Like, you put like, I don't know, 16 countries. You put them. I'm pretty sure. I swear. Like, even like, I would love to be with my friends with like French flag with a beer and just saying, let's go France. But okay, maybe I would be coaching, but I would just love to be the guy that cheer up my country and not for like the team that represents Europe. You know, like my country. And this would be actually a link to the sports. And it's so obvious that I don't understand why Riot is not even mentioning it once. So yeah,
well, the dominance of Korea in that particular competition.
I'd love to watch Team USA play.
That's fine.
Also, Team USA would be.
That would be a sad state of affairs, right?
I don't know who you imagine it would be, but like, just, you know, the fact that, for example, like, I mean, I'm French, but like, for example, French Korea, and if our team can take like maybe one game out of Korea, best players, imagine how hype it would be for us. Like, everyone will watch League of Legends. Like, everyone that plays League of Legends once would want to watch France versus Korea, because we could do something. You don't want to watch G2 versus as a French guy, you don't want to watch G2 versus SKT. Okay, maybe SKT is a really good match, but you don't want to be super hyped because you don't really care about the results. Like, maybe G2 gonna win, maybe SKT gonna win.
The question is, Shaunz, though, are you claiming Hui as a French guy?
Yeah, that's the question.
Is he the starting mid laner of Team France?
He is a French citizen, I believe.
Yeah.
He's a French.
He's accomplished the most. He's accomplished the most. So.
I mean, Riot still didn't decide to talk about that.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see how it is. Yeah. Interesting.
But I mean, that was an idea. I really think that this is the kind of thing you have to take into account when you are driving a company. That's really important. Instead of just like just letting these things happen, then I'm obviously not being super healthy.
And obviously, Team France, their top playing position, so as walks in. All right, boys, when I was sitting down, sorry, actually, mate, we're using Ghanbarzadeh. I am a 3-time LCS champion. Like, classic.
Steve is also around.
Okay.
But
I would go back. Substitute, like Kikis and Expect.
To go back to the viewership thing, I do think that would be a fun way to do All-Stars. And you don't have to do All-Stars the same way every year either. You can always mix it up, but I'd enjoy seeing that tournament for sure.
Monty, you want to know another idea? I've got a good exhibition idea for you. Here's a good one. This is a legit one as well. If you want to remember the whole point of All-Stars as well. Unfortunately, they don't do such a great job with actually getting the best players for all the teams, etc. So I don't think it currently fulfills the All-Stars like ballot type concept in other sports as well. But if you wanted to do an exhibition tournament that would be super hype as a one-off, here's what you do, Monty. You have like an off season where there's enough time for people to spend like 2 weeks practicing, and you make an exhibition tournament that is just classic teams playing in a tournament. And it's like World Elite Season 2 to 3. It's Moscow 5. It's old TSM. Whatever lineups will agree to play, you just have this hype like Legends tournament basically. And it's a one-off, and the results don't really matter because really everyone just wants to see these teams play again and see like a fun match. Like obviously Moscow 5 TSM probably be fun at this point in time because half of them are retired. I imagine that as a one-off. The hype that would draw.
It would be great.
It would be good.
That would be a really fun tournament.
Yeah.
The other thing you could do that might be interesting is basically have the fans vote for coaches, or just select like the coaches that finish the best in the regular season, and then do a fantasy style draft of every play. Just put all the players in the world into one pool, and then have them draft out of that pool for.
And if you're really smart, you could if you're really smart, you could get a sponsor for that. But I can't think of any off the top of my head, so just leave that to yourself. So none come to mind. So
that would be a good idea. I like it too.
Okay. Yeah. Is there any final topic?
So yeah, I just want to go back because people are panicking over this viewership issue. Everybody's like doing the Chicken Little, the sky is falling. What's going to happen to the LCS? Wah. And I think that. It's not like League of Legends is dying. It still has several years of gas left in the tank. It's not a doomsday scenario. If you're a League of Legends fan, that viewership is declining. In fact, it is natural. League of Legends has been pretty much the premier esport in the West for about 4 years now. And in my experience at esports, things tend to plateau after 4 to 5 years of being in the spotlight, and then they will slowly decline over time. No esport is forever. It never has been. There will never be an esport forever. It's not how it works. So it's just kind of natural. And
yeah, I just think like I hope their transition is like prepared. Like as long as they can handle like League of Legends enough to make like sure it's sustainable and it's working, then. If they can make it last for like 3-4 years, maybe the game is pretty good in itself. But they have to, I think, like their second game they are launching. I don't know when. Like they have to make sure that League of Legends base is going there. And this is where, like, I think if you
there's no way to make that happen.
But
Darren.
I like his plan though. He's now turned the plan into one of those like horror vampire type movies / X-Men Apocalypse, where it's like, "Sir, the vessel is prepared. Your transition awaits." It's like, "Now, guard the doors. I will ascend now." Like, you can't necessarily force that to happen, can you? You can hope that the players go to League of Legends 2 or whatever.
You auto-create accounts on the new game from
League of Legends. Well, that's your plan, obviously. They just wake up one day and they just play in League of Legends 2. Like, what the fuck? They've already been forcibly transitioned. Okay.
I'm just saying, like, if as a company, if you launch a new thing when like your main customers are not really happy with, they will never go into your new game. So you have to make sure that you create something that really appeal them and really like make them like super happy. Then you introduce the new game, and you're like, oh my god, this is a new game on League of Legends, and did this world championship or did this insane tournament, and then boom, you want to go into the new game. So I'm just saying that they need. If they are trying to build a new game, they need to make this transition smooth.
Well, boom, that's the end of the episode. So we didn't get to talk about Korea much, but we'll have a future episode. I'll plan to actually get a specific guest that's an expert about Korea. It's not your fault, mate. Monty's a busy man. He's got lots of things to do nowadays, like do VOD reviews or whatever. I don't know what he does nowadays. He does something, though. He does something. That's all that matters. So He still casts League of Legends, apparently, but as we've just discussed, no one watches. So that's going to be the end of the episode. I'm going to turn it off now, and we will be back at some point in the future.